Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. My name is Steve Smith, and I'm your host. By now, I'm sure you are fully aware that I am the person who is on the microphone introducing all these wonderful episodes to you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is something very special I have, and it is a segment that I've decided to call Steve's Random Special Guest. So from time to time, and I don't know how often, I'm going to have a special guest that doesn't quite fit into any segments that I've already got listed. So not on Keeper of the Greens, not going to fit into the boardroom, they're not going to be on the design brief or anything like that. So because I'm not sure where they're going to fit, I've decided to make their own random segment, and it's called Steve's Random Special Guest. Now, the person that I have for the very first one is an absolute belter of a guest to have on the podcast, and I'm very privileged to have this person join me. It is the one and only, and I'm sure lots of you know who he is. I'm sure lots of you have heard his name before, and for those of you that don't know, you're in for a real treat. It's the one and only Mike O'Keefe from the Ohio State program in the USA. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, this is episode number 135. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming from an early and late time zone all at once because it's on the other side of the planet. And I have on joining me on the podcast the fantastic human that is Mike O'Keefe from the Ohio State. Mate, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Great to see you, and an honor to get on here eventually. It's taken us a while to get together, but real pleasure, Steve.
It has, mate. Thank you for joining me. And look, it has taken us a bit of work. It's taken us a bit of time, but the pressure was building because every second person I have on the podcast seems to have gone through your program over there at the Ohio State University. And it was just I get a message from you. Oh, Steve, Mark is a great person on it. And we've had Shane on there. And every time I turn up, I'm like, another. And then in the conversations, I'm saying, you're not going to tell me you've been to Ohio. You're not going to tell me you've been to the Ohio State program. And yes, there's another one. Mate, the pressure was immense. It was only fitting that we get to having you personally on the podcast to have a chat, mate. So thank you for joining in. It's we're going to have a lot of things to talk about. And we're going to talk about a lot of people. We're going to talk about a lot of the things that you do there, how you enhance and grow people's careers. Mate, it's huge. There's so much that you do for the industry. And, I do want to stop talking, but we're going to start off with an icebreaker that everyone knows, and that's Steve Super 7. All right, mate, so there's a few 7 quick questions, a little bit of fun. Are you ready to go?
Yes, sir. I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. Let's see how this pans out for someone in the US that's not an American by birth, but we'll get there. Number 1, mate, sunrise or sunset?
I've listened to too many of your podcasts, and I love sunrises. And I do because I've spent a lot of time on golf courses. And, the beauty of sunrise is you're out there and nobody else is out there except the team. And you've got the whole place to yourself. And you're up before everybody else. You feel like you have the world in your hands. And that's why I love sunrises. I love it. And it's peaceful and quiet, and you hear the birds. So sunrises for me, mate.
Mate, I miss it already. I miss it already. You're telling me the things that I used to love, mate. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Quite right. Number 2, dogs or no dogs allowed on the golf course? What is the feeling over there where you are, and maybe even obviously a personal insight here?
Well, the feeling over here in the States, of course, is that they don't allow dogs. But I've been in a lot of places. I remember being up in Sweden one time, and the people were walking their dogs, and they were playing golf, and the dogs were well behaved. It's almost therapeutic, Steve. When you bring your best mate with you, You bring your dog with you, and let's face it, that's what golf is. It's a therapeutic exercise. So wrong with bringing a dog? I got no problem with bringing dogs, but here, unfortunately, it's just not cut out for it with the environment here in the States. I've never seen a dog on a golf course here, but if I had a chance, I'd bring my dog with me because they'd probably chase some squirrels or some rabbits or something.
And you know what? That's interesting. I didn't know. It's starting to become a thing here in Australia where we're seeing a few more clubs allowing it on certain days and bits and pieces. Lots of supers have them in their teams. They call them, team mascots, team dogs, and that's a really nice thing to be able to have as well. I didn't know that it was just not a thing at all over there so much. So there you go. Interesting.
No, it's a pity, really. I mean, and they're very, very astute in Australia by doing that because you're going to get a lot of members that have dogs, and to bring a dog in, it's becoming more inclusive, and I see it happening there. And I guarantee you, when they have a dog day, everybody shows up,
Yeah,
and it's
that's
it's a good
right.
it's a marketing tool. Honestly, it's a good ploy.
And like you said before, it's bringing your best mate out, and they're family members at home. You're essentially bringing the family out as well,
Oh,
and it's
yeah,
like bringing the kids along or bringing your partner
yeah,
along, whatever it might be.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
no, very good, very good.
Mm.
Number three. Now this one I'm curious, very curious. Stripes or no stripes on fairways?
Well, there's a time and a place for everything, and a lot of the traditional golf courses, you have no purpose putting stripes on those courses.
No,
No
that's
purpose.
right.
Now, you got a TPC Sawgrass, which you see very often on the TV. Yes, of course, they're going to sex it up and
Yep.
they're going to make it look beautiful. And it's there for that very reason. Remember, golf is an entertaining sport. I mean, it's there for entertainment. And a lot of the courses we have over here are made for TV.
Yeah.
So guess what? You want to have no stripes on a course looking up at that high definition. It's not really that beneficial. But I love one stripe, where they go up one side and come down the
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
side, that
Yep.
single line.
50-50 black and whites. Yep.
That's where that golf course, it's part of their architecture.
Yep.
And that's the way it is. And there's a place and a time for everything. So I'm on the fence, in the right place and the right time.
Very good, mate. Good to hear. Number four, painted whole lips or not painted whole lips? What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, actually, it's funny because of the temperatures over here. Oftentimes, they don't just do it to put lipstick. They do it to stabilize the lip,
Okay.
and it's there for a purpose. Um, but again, it's a time and a place, and it's the type of golf course. A lot of links, traditional golf courses that I go around, they
Yeah.
don't put paint on those. It's sacrilege,
Yeah. Yeah.
But the high definition course, they put it in. It's an attention to detail kind of thing. It's that crispness. But when you see some of the courses with the Bermuda, you're literally going to have that wall of the cup break down on you
Yeah.
when that sun is on it all day, and especially in tournaments. I mean, I don't know if you know, but they actually use hairspray to stabilize
I
that wall.
did not know that. There you go.
Yep,
That's a little
yep.
party trick.
Yep, yeah, it is, and it's a big thing when you've got TV and you got them looking.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than watching a painted cup and it's broken down
Yeah.
on you
Yeah.
on the TV.
100%.
It looks terrible.
Yeah, it
It's all about
does.
the detail.
And
It's all
you're
about the
and
details.
you're right, because those cameras, as they're zoomed in, we're looking at the dimples of the golf ball
Yes,
at that level, at 4K high definition, right, on TV. We're seeing it
yes.
closer than you could kneel down next to it. That's how
Oh,
close we're seeing. So those levels of detail do matter on television, and that's its purpose is for television, right? So very good,
yep.
great insight, mate. Thank you. Number five, what is your favourite grass variety, Mike?
Oh, unfortunately, I'm in the middle of some of the best golf courses over here, and you can't beat Bentgrass, let me tell you. You just can't beat it. I mean, I've had people come in from overseas and roll on it. I mean, they're like, I had a guy last week come up from North Carolina, and I caught him in the middle of a fairway, and he was rubbing it like a carpet. And I'm like, hey, come on, man, they're going to think there's something wrong with you. Get off
Well,
get off the grass.
but see,
You
you,
can't.
you say that like that. Even coming from a lot of Australians, bent grass on fairways is out of this world. That's another thing.
I know. But it's the fineness of it. It's the ball. Now, there's a lot of be said for Zoysias where that ball stands up
Yep.
and it really is teed up and it's wonderful and it's there for the color and everything like that. But you just can't beat, we get Kentucky bluegrass over here.
Yes.
I mean, it's amazing. Wait till you come over, you'll appreciate what I'm saying. There's
um,
nothing fine tuned.
I'm sure my head will be blown more than I can imagine the day that happens, mate. So,
Yeah,
yeah, very interesting. But we're going to go
yeah,
with bent on that
yep.
one. Very good, mate. Very good. Now, number six, this is I'm curious. You're a well-travelled man, so we'll see where this one sits. It's a multiple-choice question. Preferred style of golf course, and they're all Australian picks. So is it New South Wales Golf Club here in Sydney? Is it the fantastically beautiful Royal Adelaide Golf Club, more in the central parts of Australia? Or is it all the way over in the western Perth, in the West Australian city that it is, to Joondalup Golf Resort, the wild features of Joondalup?
Wow.
Don't know what
Would
you
you
know.
believe it?
Don't know what you've
Would you
seen.
would you believe it? I've played all three.
Oh, very. You know what, mate? I'm gonna call it now. I think you might be the only person I've had who's actually played all three of them, because most people don't know Joondalup.
Oh, I know it. There are lots of kangaroos out there, mate. They'll stand up in front of the tee box and look at you
They
hitting the ball and
do.
make you nervous as hell, let me
They
tell you.
do. Very good.
Yeah,
Okay,
lovely
this
golf
is
course.
interesting. What are your thoughts
But
here?
I'll tell you a funny story. There was an old bugger at New South Wales, Gary Dempsey, if you remember the name.
Yes.
Do you
Yes,
remember it?
indeed. Yes, indeed.
He picked me up at the airport at 6 a.m. and he said, "Hurry up, you old cobber. You're on the tee in 20 minutes." He called me an old cobber because I was struggling after 15 hours on a plane. And I'm like, "I'm on the tee." He goes, "I'm putting you out before the lady, so you better get your act together." And I'll tell you what, there's nothing better than being on the tee at New South Wales at 6:30 in the morning and be out there with the ocean and the
Yeah.
whales. Himself and Mark Parker back in the day,
Yeah.
they played with me, and they were looking at me after 9 holes, going, we were just wondering how long you'd last before you fell over, because when we come over from America, we can't go play golf in the morning. And I said, "Well, you boys, how many hours of sleep did you have?" "Oh, I have kids. I had probably four." And Gary goes, "I got a bad back. I was lucky to get four." I said, "Well, I had 9 hours of sleep on the plane because I flew business class. I had
Uh,
more sleep than the both of them. So you cannot beat New South Wales. I'm sorry about Adelaide. It's a classic history golf course. It's a lovely golf course with the train tracks.
yeah.
I don't know if have you been down to Royal
I,
Adelaide?
I've seen Royal Adelaide. I haven't played it, but I've walked it, and it's just a magnificent space. I love it. I love it.
Mate, they were nice enough to let me out there on my own to play. It's a beautiful course, but would you agree with me about New South Wales? It's a spectacular
It,
site.
it it is just you talk about, and it goes back to number one, right? Sunrise or sunset. You've just
Yes, sir.
painted that picture so beautifully well, of 6:30 in the morning. I mean, take away the rush at the airport, right? Getting rushed over to the tee, but it is that beautiful crispness in the morning. It's that freshness coming off the ocean. It's
Oh,
you almost feel like you're the first person in Australia to feel the sunlight. It is such a
mm,
magnificent space, and then you wander out the first few holes. Man, it is just an absolute incredible space for golf,
yeah.
and it's one of the
So
reasons why it's so highly regarded around the world,
yeah,
let alone
yeah.
here in
And I mean,
Australia.
Mark's doing a great job there now. He's
Oh,
taken over from Gary
incredibly.
and redone a lot of stuff there. And I mean, that whole track itself out there is just spectacular. And I mean, but in fairness, you can't compare them.
I know, I know.
Joondalup in itself and Western Australia is a fantastic golf course, and Royal Adelaide. Look at all the great golf courses around Adelaide; they're spectacular out there.
They
So
are, and there's so many, like you say, and even Joondalup. I think I don't know whether I was being unfair in adding Joondalup to that list, because Joondalup in itself, when I went there last year for the first time and walked around, I was just gobsmacked by the quarry hole, which is the famous number three, the
yes,
the par three across the quarry, and just the exaggeration of the features and how it's used in the golf course was what blew my mind away. I've never seen anything like that here in Australia, and you
mm,
probably being done by Trent Jones, I think it was. You probably look at it and go, okay, I can see that this is an American feel, it's an American style, but it's just wow in your face. It's so staggering,
yeah,
and it's just so relentless in the way
yeah.
that the quarry course itself does it. It's just unreal. Very, very impressive. But that's me talking about it. This is you. Fantastic. New South Wales. Let's go. Let's go back to that. Now, number seven, mate, and this is another big one, probably the biggest one. It's why we finish with number seven. And I'm curious to see, as I say this with everyone, what you're going to come up with. Which golf course in Australia would you like to visit tomorrow, and why? Now, that could be a bucket list. It could be a nostalgic one, something you've never seen before, you've always wanted to. And I know that you've seen lots of places here. So I am curious to see if there's anything that stands out or something that you've always wanted to get to.
Well, I mean, I've played a lot of golf courses in Australia, and of course, I naturally, I played the short course at Kingston Heath when I was down last, the
Yep.
Furrows.
Yep.
I
Yep.
don't know if you've been around
I've
there,
seen
but
that
that was
one. Great little
spectacular.
track. Yeah.
I'm kind of a new course hog, kind of. I want to get down and see 7 Mile Beach, down in Tassie, and
Yeah.
you've been there. I'm kind of jealous, actually.
Yeah. I
I
got
mean,
one
you've
up
been
on you.
there. You do. Tell us how good is that? How's that? How
Oh,
good is that going to be?
honestly, it is just an it's so well suited in the landscape to choose that space for golf. Matt Goggin has been sitting on that
Matt Coggin.
concept his nearly in his entire life. I was fortunate to have him on the pod, and
Oh,
just hearing him speak about it, what Mike Clayton and Mike DeVries were able to unearth there, and how you pull the pine forest back and you can see what they've got to work with, and I know that they've done a lot of work in some of those areas more than others. But the way
mm,
the golf course sits, the way it's you get almost ocean views from everywhere. Its location, its proximity to the city of Hobart is one of those really unique features that will not be spoken about enough.
yeah,
That's the game changer for me. It's unlike a King Island, and I've not been to King Island, but the remoteness of trying to get there is part of that adventure. Don't get me wrong. But I
yeah,
think where
yeah.
7 Miles is going to make it so much better is it's accessible to so many more people.
Yep.
It's Tasmania is an understated course, an understated state for in Australia for golf, and we're starting to learn how good it is. But
Oh,
the way that it's routed through the dunes, a variety of the holes, there's a unique quirk of a hole with two greens. There's some really cool features about it. But for me, it feels really impressive the way that it's almost terraced with the slope of the dunescape there that you get from the highest point all the way down to the lowest point, and you are scaling up some really high stuff early on, and it's just
yeah,
the way that it fits, the jigsaw puzzle fits so well in there, and
yeah,
and then you go to the detail of the green complexes and the way that the two mics have brought out those contours and what you're going to be playing with and how best to play those holes, and if the wind gets up, there's it goes from the large scale of the landscape right down to the final detail and how that works in with Mother Nature, what you've got to play with. It is just a very, very well thought out golf course on top of a very, very well located space. And all of that
yeah,
combined
yeah.
is just remarkable. So, mate, I
Well,
hope you want to get
I've
there
had,
next week now.
I do because I've played Ocean Dunes and I played Cape Wickham, a
Yep.
couple of the holes
Yep.
at Cape Wickham back when Ocean Dunes wasn't even open yet.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
mean, it's going to be competitive. Just think about it. You got Bamboozle up the top and
Yep.
you got this. They have to produce a product. And this is what I love about my job is all these new courses coming online over the last number of years. This is variety for golfers. I mean, I know it's hell to get down there, to get into Tassie and then get up to King Island. I mean, I remember coming out of Melbourne, the small little uh, gate, and the guy said to me, "You're going down to King Island. There was a plane crash there last week. I think it was a couple of your Americans were killed, And I
Yeah,
said,
that was
mate, you're one
devastating.
hell of a tour guide, mate. You're one hell of a tour guide. He's quite calmly telling me there was 6 of them killed on the
I
plane,
know. I know. That was
so,
devastating.
but yeah, it was. But no, in fairness, I'm just nosy. I want to see it. I mean, it's great for Tasmania. Don't get me wrong. That's why I'm so happy that Matt Goggin is doing stuff like that. And you're dead right. I noticed because the golfer today, they want to get off the plane and be on the tee in 15 minutes.
Well,
And that's exactly what they're going to do in Hobart.
like what you said about New South Wales, right? It's located near Sydney Airport. It's not far away, and this part it's only I think 4 kilometres from the airport of Hobart. Like
Yep.
it's remarkable. It might be a little bit further, but it is so
No.
close. You see it when you fly in, and that's the other part, right? The anticipation of the way the flight path is to get into Hobart Airport swings you
Yeah.
around. You get this full view as the plane banks around to get to the strip and come into land. So the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
thing is just
Yeah.
it's unreal.
Yeah.
It's unreal. So.
Well, but it's good for golf. It's good. It'll pull more golfers in there. You'll be surprised at how many people are talking about it. I mean, I listened to your pod about it, and I'm delighted. And Matt Goggin, like you said, has been doing this for years.
Oh,
And I mean, the money that's involved, and to date, the fact that we're talking about new courses being built, look, Steve, it's exciting for me because that means more jobs for my guys down the road.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah, 100%.
You know,
And getting through that, and we'll talk about those parts to our industry. It's getting that to the point where we're going to have more facilities for greenkeepers to be engaged in. There's special places that we're going to be more skilled to look after those spaces even more so.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that long ago. I look at the time, 15 years ago or so when I was at Katoomba, it was going very much the other way. And people were wondering why it was worth getting into the career of greenkeeping and what are the opportunities available. So it's changed and it's swinging around. Then you go to Kangaroo Island off Adelaide in South Australia, which is coming through as well. And then look, we've got some really good stuff that's happening, and the people are working in the backgrounds because some of these projects take 10 years before we even hear about them. So, or more.
Exactly.
Which
I
which
just
is great.
saw a picture of a fairway in Kangaroo Island. One of my guys, I think it was Luke Patchard's or somebody. So
Yeah.
I'm excited that golf course is being developed. It's happening.
Yeah, it is. It's they're looking at opening next year at some point. I'm not sure the exact details of when, but they've got I think 8 or more fairways that have been now put down. It's Tiff Tough Cooch, and so that's gone down. And yeah, Luke put that photo up just the other day. I think I saw it too. So it's the anticipation is building because that's a project that's taken a long time. Probably that one's a little bit more akin to the King Island style designs, and a lot of the people that were involved at Cape Wickham have come across to being involved in the project over there at Kangaroo Island. So another unique space, another fantastic location, and the photos are just jaw-dropping.
When I go down, I always try to be nosy and poke my nose in, just like the furrows at the super at the heat. Said to me, Mike, Saturday morning, there's nobody out there. Go head out. And the assistant took me out there and dropped me off and left me on my own. And I took like 2 hours to play all the holes. It's just it was heaven. Let me tell you. Have you been out to the furrows?
I have. I was down there last year with a member, and he took me around the furrows, and we had a hit of the furrows, and it was a really, really impressive little golf course and OCM design, of course. But you talk about Hayden Mead, the superintendent, and he does an incredible job down there at Kingston Heath, as we know. But I want to pinpoint on what you said then. You were down there on your own. Now, there is something about, and we don't get to do this enough, golf is very much a social game as well, but a lot of the time as greenkeepers, you talked about it before, we're out there early, often on your own. I think there's something about walking around on a golf course. You don't even need to play it. But if you have the opportunity to be there at first light, no one else there, whether you're playing or walking to take it all in, I think there's something really special about being there early and experiencing everything about a space waking up because they're a living space. And the Furrows would be one of those magnificent places to do it, as much as Kingston Heath and a lot of other golf courses around the world. But the opportunity to do it doesn't come along very often. I think it's a really unique thing to experience.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like I said, it's therapeutic. You get out there and you have a place to yourself. That doesn't happen very often. It was a rainy Saturday morning. The assistant dropped me off. He said, "Look, are you good? Here's Hayden's umbrella. Just walk it up to the clubhouse." And I walked it up, and they saw me walking in, and they go, "Where'd you come from, mate?" I said, "Well, this is Hayden's umbrella. He let me borrow it. Hayden was away in the US or someplace, I think." And they were looking at me, and I struck up a conversation with the chap in the pro shop, and next thing you know, he's coming to the States, going to LA, and I said, "Why don't you come into LA Country Club?" And I set him up to go visit LA Country Club. So
there you go.
This is what I love about this profession. The people, Steve, is what really make it. And doing that for me meant so much.
No, mate, and you're quite right. And we're going to get into that. We're going to get into all of that because it is about the people, and that's something that you do so well and have imparted so much influence on so many people around the world. And let's talk about that. But let's start off, mate, because I like to start off at the beginning of people's stories. And probably people don't know a lot of your beginnings. And we noticed that there's an accent there. You're in America, you've been there a long time, but you've managed to retain your accent and you're Irish. So coming from Ireland, can you give us, mate, a bit of an insight to those who don't know you? There's going to be a lot of people here that don't know who you are, obviously, but there's a lot of people that do, that listen to my podcast here, and they don't know your background. I have probably learned a lot in the last 48 hours, a little bit more looking into and talking to you, getting ready for this. But you come from Ireland. Tell us a little bit about you growing up and getting to the US, please.
Well, Steve, I grew up on a small dairy farm in Cork, down the south of Ireland. My father was a dairy farmer, had no time. He said, "What a waste of good grass." That's what he said about the golf courses. So when you're on a dairy farm, you don't venture into golf courses, But I went to college for horticulture. I didn't do turf grass. I did horticulture veg production,
Yep.
and I didn't play golf. I didn't play golf in Ireland, even though I was around Ballybunion and Lahinch and all that kind of stuff. But I grew up in a big family. I was the youngest of six. They
Wow.
all traveled amazingly. All my family traveled, and they all encouraged me to travel. They said, "You have to get out in the world." I was a quiet, shy young man. They sent me to boarding school, I think, to get me out of my shell, and it did the world of good for me because it opened up my eyes. I played a bit of football. We were surrounded by rugby, football, all that kind of stuff. But what happened was I got a job. I had a truck. I had everything out of college, and I was set at 21 years of age. And Steve, I got bored, and I said, "Is this it? Am I set for life now?" And this opportunity, this very program, Steve, came up, and
Right.
I mean, this program, this exchange program, to go and do veg production in America, and that's how I got into this program. But I grew up in the south of Ireland, and it was a very, very easy life, and it was very good. But the I had a lot of relatives that had been in the States in the past, and my brothers and sisters hadn't. They had been to the States, but not lived here. I have a sister that lives up in Cairns in Queensland. She's
Oh,
a
wow.
she's a nurse.
North Queensland. Yeah, right.
Yeah, she's a matron up there in a hospital in Cairns Base Hospital, and a brother that was working in India and went to China. So we all traveled. So I
Wow.
didn't think anything of coming to the States. It wasn't a big deal because I'd already done an internship in the Netherlands, and
Okay.
I'd done an internship in France, and coming to the States was so easy for me. And that was my beginnings really. But I came on this very program, and from a credibility standpoint, people don't realize that when I first came over, my accent, if you've ever met any Irish people, their accent is horrendous. It's so difficult to understand
I've
them.
got no, can't follow up. No clue what happens. I lose people
Exactly.
pretty quickly.
Exactly. But if you listen to me, I've changed my accent completely because I learned to adapt. I was on a 10,000-acre farm, and all your communication was by radio. And I had two English boys with
Ah.
me, and the English boys would get on the radio and to be like, "All right, all right, all right, all right." And the lady in the office would call me and go, "Did you hear that?" I go, "Yes, ma'am. Uh, can you call those boys and tell them to get down to this other field?" And I'm like, "Why me? I'm just a bloody intern." She goes, "Because you, sunshine, speak English."
That's
And
fantastic.
I changed my accent to where they could understand me. And I swear to God, it was the makings of me because, and I tell my students, they learn how to adapt, learn how to change. And this is where it is in today. And if you listen to my accent, now put me back in Ireland and give me 2 pints of Guinness, and mate, I'm
Yep.
right back to that Irish accent. It only takes 2 pints and
It's
I'm set.
it's really funny. Accents are really funny things, and I love listening to lots of people's different accents. I'm a big fan of hearing it and trying to have a bit of fun with it sometimes. But we were talking before we press record on this, right, about being the part, and some of that is how you present yourself. And you talked about there what you picked up really early on is having to you got to fit in. You got to be able to fit into the cogs of the machine, no matter where you are, and being able to adjust your accent and the way you communicated because it was only by radio, that immediately you were a better fit and more useful in that particular space with that group, and you worked at being able to do that. So you were better in a different way, not just on the tools and not just what you were there for, but all of that is involved. You have to adjust and adapt yourself to be wherever it is that you're trying to go, don't you? And that's how you communicate. That's how you articulate yourself. It's how you present yourself. It's how you've got to really be what you want to be in all parts of yourself,
Yeah.
don't you?
Yeah. And that's the key to success here in the States. You've got to figure out. And I told one girl the other day, I said to her, and she goes, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "You know what I want you to do? I want you to learn to walk faster because everybody else is walking faster than you
Yep.
are.
Yep.
And you just got to look around you and see these people. It's nothing that's not you're not able to do. These people are no better than you. You just have to learn how to be prepared, have your tools ready in the morning, be ready to walk faster if they're walking, and that's what I did when I was an intern. So I figured it out very quickly. And you know what I did? I listened to the evening news. And the broadcaster spoke very clearly. And if you listen to those people, they always pronounce their words.
Yeah.
And I was no better than those other two interns. They were better than me at what they did. But I just learned how to communicate better.
Yeah.
And she would literally call me up on the phone or call me on the radio and say, "Can you go down and tell those boys they're in the wrong field?" There'd be a couple of cuss words in there as well. But you're right. This is what you have to do to succeed, is to learn to adapt as quickly as you can.
And it doesn't matter what we're talking about, right? It's
No.
anything. It's not just what our space is in turf and in greenkeeping. It's any part of your life. If you want to succeed in that, you have to work at it and be who you want to be, and you have to play that part. You have to play it out. Otherwise, people will lose trust. They'll lose confidence. They'll lose trust, and all of a sudden, everything breaks down pretty quickly, and you're not there before you know it. Without being rude, mate. So you were part of the Ohio State program, getting to the US, and it's really interesting hearing you talk about growing up, your family, and how a lot of it wasn't a big deal to travel. I mean, I look at my family, and it was getting out of the mountains and getting overseas seems like something very, very different to me. Certainly, getting overseas when I was growing up and I was younger. But there you go. So, how was that? Seeing the Ohio State program from within, and then how did you get to being involved? And you can tell us a little bit more about the broader scope of the Ohio State program, please.
Well, I was an average intern. I mean, on a big project, the farmer was a corn and soybean farmer. He wanted to grow tomatoes for the first time, and he called me a tomato expert, which I wasn't. But I winged it a lot of the time. But I really enjoyed the people. We had Hispanics. I started to learn Spanish, all the bad words first,
Yeah.
and the Hispanics, they love me, and matter of fact, like with the current climate, I shouldn't say this, but they heard that my visa was finishing, and they managed to come up with a perfectly good green card, which was totally fake, to try and keep me around. But I wish I'd kept it. I never kept it, So, but really, I mean, with the program itself, what was the key, and it's a funny life story as well, was there was another intern who was being treated unfairly,
Okay.
and we lived in a caravan and a house trailer. And I remember going out to the scale house and calling the guy in charge of the program at the time and saying, "Listen, this is none of my business, but I feel this young man is just not being treated fairly. Now, I don't know what you can do, but that he's being treated unfairly by the boss's son. So what do you do, in that
Yeah.
situation?" Well,
Yeah.
he said, "Leave it with me." And I didn't know anything, but the next day we all stood in the yard in the morning kicking dirt, and Bossman said, "Kevin, we need somebody up at the other farm 40 miles away. Would you be able to pack your stuff and go up there?" And he said, "Yes, sir." And we were still talking when he walked away and went into the trailer. And 2 minutes later, he came out with his suitcase, and he goes, "Well, goddamn, that was the fastest packing I've ever seen." Well, guess what, Steve? He had his suitcase packed already. He was ready to quit. He was ready to
Okay.
quit.
Yeah.
He was that close to leaving. And I looked at him and I never said a word. And he got in the truck and he left. And I never saw him, for ages. And he never knew what I did. But
Yeah.
obviously, the boss man from the program had called the boss man of the farm and
Yeah.
said, "Listen, here's the deal." Years later, he found out and he said, "You made a phone call." And you know what? The boss man from the program, when he came time to thinking about who could I get to come in and work in the program, is somebody that has the depth to look at somebody else's bad situation and see a problem and pick up the phone and do something about it, Steve. And many times today, we're all too busy with our own lives that we don't think if somebody is having a challenge or having some, mental issues or whatever, to pick up the phone and make a call and make a difference. That's what separated me from everybody else, and that's why I'm in this job today.
Mate, it's that's really impressive start, and that leads us, very easily to understanding already a lot more about yourself and how you nurture and help a lot of people through your turf program, which is an extension of the Ohio State or part of the Ohio State program, and how you do that. You're helping people get through their careers. You're giving them opportunities. You're helping them navigate through some difficult things from time to time as part of the process. That's life, right? Life kicks you in the head from time to time, whether we like it or not. These are life lessons that we learn, and we learn how to manage and deal through those in our own way sometimes, but we also seek help from others. And that was something that you did early on, and now here you are, fast forward 30 odd years, I'm sure, without being rude, to today, and you're helping so many people come through your program, the Ohio State program more broadly, in all of its different facets, and we'll talk about that as well. But we're really getting a lot of expertise, experience, insight, understanding, knowledge, learning, skills. There's so many parts to it in a very condensed short space of time. That's what an internship is. But that's something that you had from very early on, and this is just a big extension of that. That's how I see it, mate. That's how I see it.
Well, I mean, a lot of people maybe wouldn't go and pick up the phone and maybe wouldn't go and do something like that. But obviously, my boss saw that in me and saying, wow, you know what? The guy taught enough. And I had to go out and go into a scale house at 8 o'clock at night and call him at home, find his number and say, look, I know it's none of my business, but I just think the kid's being treated unfairly. And it stuck with him forever. And like I said, I was no better than anybody else. I wasn't an exceptional student or anything like that. But and I said to him when he called me about coming into work in the office, I said, well, first of all, I said to him, mate, you can't afford me. I'm making too much money, and he said, well, when you come around, but when I got another visa and I went onwards, I got to the point where 5 years of doing that kind of work, I got to the point maybe I could go in and do something like that. I don't know. But funny story, when I first came up into the office, I was so bad. He set me out in the office and he said, well, all the files are in there. Start looking at them. And I tried to open the drawer and I couldn't open the filing cabinet. Turns out the bottom drawer was open a little bit. And I didn't realize that you had to kick the bottom drawer closed before you opened all the top ones and they fall on top of you. I was so dumb, Steve. How dumb is that? That's how much of an office guy I was.
Yeah. And that's it. You come from a practical world, working outside for a living. You don't know, mate, I wouldn't have a clue. Because some of those now, look, we digress really quickly, right? But these are the things, right? Some of those filing cabinets, you have to have all the drawers closed to then open the top one first. We didn't know that. These are the things that seem so simple to most people. We got no clue.
I know, but I didn't know how to type. I didn't know all the forms in the university. It was a nightmare. I went to class at night to learn how to type.
Wow.
And that again goes back to adaptability.
Yeah.
I realized I was chicken picking, let me tell you, I don't chicken pick anymore. I learned how to type professionally, and it was the best thing I ever did back then, so. But anyway, sorry, I digress. I apologize.
No, don't apologize. I like all the rabbit holes that I'm sure we're going to go down. So, but you go back, this is people, working with people, understanding people, and there is, I'm probably not one of those people that pick it up very well, understanding people. I know that. And you can learn those skills as well, but you had that inherently. You were able to do that very early on. You showed that you could, and that was something that you have in you to be able to do that and help people. And
the other thing I did, Steve, not to interrupt, was when I came in here to Ohio State, I went to class in business management, human psychology.
Okay.
And it was the best thing I ever did because I learned early on I could grow amazing tomatoes, 20, 30 ton to the acre. I was a rock star. They thought I was wonderful. But we hired locals and they quit on us because they couldn't handle the dirt and the dust and everything like that. And I realized you can be the greatest grower in the world if you don't have people show up in the morning. And this is the biggest problem in turfgrass today is we got these great superintendents, but some of them don't have the best personalities to manage and motivate people. And there's no school for this, Steve.
No,
there's no school on how you learn how to manage people. I wish there was, because I deal with a lot of supers and they didn't get into the job to being, babysitters or motivators like that. But I went to school and I learned that was the best thing to do. And it served me well over the years to have that. And like I tell people, I don't grow grass. The background in human psychology is the best thing ever to have. And you understand what I'm saying.
100%, mate. And it's funny you talk about that because I had that very conversation with so many young greenkeepers that are coming up through the ranks, looking at their career paths ahead of them and seeing where they're going. And I was a super. I walked into the job as a superintendent as a young guy, 23 years old, having my first golf course, and was like, this is it. This is what I've always wanted. And pretty quickly you realize it's not about the greenkeeping, it's about people. And without people, you're useless because you can't do it on your own. And you need to be able to lead a team, and you've got to work out how to do that. And we don't have that. So we'll bounce around a little bit to some of these topics as well. But one part of greenkeeping that we all love is the turf side of it and working outdoors, and it's something that we're passionate about. That's why we continue down that career path. But when we get to the role of assistant superintendent of a big course or a superintendent of a smaller course, once we get into those senior leadership roles and senior management roles, and you realize that it's very much about people, you realize that you're not set up for that. You don't. There's no way to learn that. We don't get told about that often. I think it's getting much better now as there's better superintendents out there, like you talked about. But generally speaking, I find that a lot of people will get into those roles because they've always wanted to, and then they realize how out of depth they are once you're dealing with, hey, sir, can I please have some more? That's what I always talk about. Is you've got everyone underneath you, you're leading the team, and they want to know how. Like they're looking at you, going, okay, where do we go from here, boss? And you don't really understand a lot of that. Some people are naturally gifted, sure, but there's not many that are, and there's more that are very much away from that and don't understand it whatsoever. And I can stick my hand up and say I was one of those too. But that's a real part of your program as well. It's that learning and the connectivity, and you're helping people along with getting them into roles with teams that are working very professionally, that understand how to work well with people and get the most out of people, because it's people working with people. We're working in large groups as with the internships that you provide, along with some of the smaller groups that we've come up through our careers, getting to the point of being on your program.
Well, and today it's so much more, there's so much more stress involved in the industry, and there's so much more that needs to be done. I know we'll get into this, with young people. So you have to be a better people person, Steve. You have to be better if you want to succeed.
Yeah.
Bigger crews, more pressure, bigger budgets. This is the kind of thing that we do to train these guys over here in the States. Learn how they motivate people, learn how they do stuff to bring you into the fold, part of the team, Steve.
Yep, 100% agreed. Mate, I want to try and, if we can, talk a little bit about the Ohio State program, because it's something that people have heard a lot about. That's part of what we're talking about here is let's give people a bit of insight. And some of that is, it's obviously the internships. You do a lot of other different industries in outdoor spaces, in horticulture and different things, but you lead up the turf side of those. Tell us a little bit about the program itself and what you set out to achieve.
Well, the program itself was started in 1979 by a guy called Mike Chrisman. He's still here. He
Wow.
retired. He's in his 70s, and he came back. Funny story. He came back to work, and I never touched his office. And he came back and he goes, "The wife's killing me, and I don't know what to do. And only so much of the Wall Street Journal you can read." And I said, "Well, whenever you're ready, come on back." And he came back into his office. So let's face it, we love what we do, Steve. You got to love what you do in this business, and that's why he does. And I think he's a great guy. But we bring in people from all over the world, approximately close to 400 a year. We work with the State Department. Our ultimate goal is to better the image of the United States. That's the underlying theme of what we do.
Yep.
Now, we do it in areas in dairy farming, in pig farming, coffee farms in Hawaii. I mean, I just happen to take care of the three envelopes: turfgrass, I take care of floristry, and I take care of wineries. I have guys here that take care of dairy farms, pig farms, greenhouses, you name it. I mean, that's a lot of people,
Yeah,
400 people to recruit
it
every
is.
year. So, but we work very closely. We work for a massive university, over 66,000 students here. So the portfolio, the objective here is, we have an obligation to reach out and help people overseas. This is a behemoth of a university, Steve. If you can picture it, we have a football stadium here on campus, right? It's a driver 9 iron from my office, holds 110,000 people.
No way.
I mean,
Are you for real?
yes,
That's
sir. Yes,
bigger
sir.
than any stadium in Australia, and it's slightly larger than the MCG.
Ask any one of my past trainees about the horseshoe. It's right across the way over here. We have a Jack Nicklaus museum that's just as close. Jack's museum with his all of his trophies in here as well,
What?
right on the campus. We have
Wow.
two 18-hole golf courses, Alistair McKenzie designed golf courses right up the street. I could be there in 5 minutes. Two golf courses on the
Wow.
property. So I'm not trying to brag or anything, but it's the sheer scale of what we have as to what we have to do.
Yeah,
So
sure.
you know, we go out and we bring in people from Australia. Do they benefit Ohio State? Maybe not directly, but it's the name.
Yeah.
It's the name that carries that clout, and it's the reputation. When you wear that logo on your hat or your shirt or whatever, that's the obligation of this program, is to go out and help people like this. And in turn, Steve, you don't know this, but as a result of that, then I can send American students, OSU students overseas. I have a young man over in Ireland this year working at Donald Trump's course in Ireland. I have another young man in England. I send guys to Australia. I've sent guys down to Richard. I've sent guys to Gary at New South Wales. I mean, I wish I had more to send out overseas. The Americans are not the best at traveling, but the ones that come to me, and they don't have to be Ohio State students, I will help them go overseas completely. So the program itself is huge, Steve. But the goal of what we try to do is exactly what you're seeing. When you get on there and you're talking to Spragsy, or you're talking to somebody like Glenn Gibson Smith,
Yeah.
look at the effect we've had in their careers. Look at the effect we've done.
It's
Shane Baker, those guys.
it's staggering. Like their experience. They happily talk about their experience and know that it's shaped their careers.
Yep.
I mean, it has a profound impact on their upbringing, on their learnings, on the way that they've carved their career as they move forward.
Well, people don't really, and I've been doing it for 36 years, they don't really realize that what we're trying to do is better the profession. Every single one of them is better in the profession in Australia or Dubai, or wherever they go as a result of this program. And we're trying to raise that standard, because guess what? There's going to be people like Matt Coggins out there. They're going to want to maintain a golf course to a standard now that they're competing. And your golfer that's rolling in on the private jets, expect to see a higher standard of, whether it be a links course with fescue or whatever it is. They want a better standard of a golf course out there, and that's our objective, Steve. We want to produce a guy that's going to be able to handle that demand.
It's a pretty impressive. Oh no, it's that's not even enough. It's incredibly impressive, mate. To be honest, the scale of it, and you sent me some of those details, but like you mentioned, over 60,000 students enrolled in the university there overall. I mean, it's incredible. The size of the space, 400 interns, and you've only got 7 of you from 7 different countries looking after the whole program.
Well, what they can't see on this podcast is the wall behind me, Steve. And it's not there just to brag or anything like that. There's names on every one of those flags. And there's a flag right there from Europe and the USA, the Ryder Cup. And every single name, every signature on that flag is a past trainee of mine. And every single one of them have been benefit of this program. And I mean, you see, there's Quail Hollow right there. A bunch of Aussies were down there for the PGA Championship, a couple of weeks ago. The Players, the Solheim Cup, the President's Cup. Richard was up for the President's Cup at Liberty National. I saw him up there, the US Open. I mean, all these flags are people that have, it's changed their lives, Steve,
It's, and you did talk, yes, people can't see it. I'll take a capture of this video so we can show people, because that wall is very impressive, mate. I didn't want to talk. I've just got a dodgy photo up of my golf course behind me, but you've got this wall of flags and signatures on some of the most prestigious and astonishing tournaments and people and that have been involved with them in the US. It's quite incredible, and
there's a flag over there from Yara Yara.
Wow.
Chris Allen played early in the morning with him. The Super came out and walked around with us. I mean, I don't know if you know the Super at Yara Yara.
No, I don't. I've not been there.
Absolutely magic to walk around. He came out and watched us hit a couple of balls. It's just wonderful to get out and see a place like that. Leg Carnup down there.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
I mean, you name it. There's some great golf courses out there. I don't know. I don't put them up with a purpose. I just put them up on the wall. There's a corner flag from the World Cup in Qatar.
Oh, wow.
The boys that I helped get jobs down there, they said, "Mike, you want a shirt?" I said, "No, bloody hell, mate, get me a corner flag." And they're like, "You want a corner flag from the final?" I said, "Mate, I got you a job. You get me a corner flag. Now don't steal it, relieve it gently from the pole."
Oh, that's incredible. And so many people, personally, I've got to ask you personally, what sort of a buzz do you get to do this day in, day out? You work tirelessly, and I'm probably jumping around a little bit on the way that I had this conversation going in my head, but hearing you talk about the opportunities that people are getting, the way that you and the team over there in the Ohio State program work cohesively together, you're looking after so many people, you're giving people so many opportunities, and you are literally changing people's lives. That must be a hell of a buzz.
Mate, it's the best job in the world. I mean, and I've got a whole bunch of people. Shane Baker wanted to know when I was retiring. He wants my job. I mean, I got all these people with daggers out there wanting to know when I'm going to keel over. They want my job because let's face it, don't tell the people around here they're all gone home anyway. I mean, I have to play golf for free at some of these horrendous golf
Yeah, no, it's
courses.
terrible.
I mean, and it's terrible, but no, seriously, it's the best job in the world. It's very stressful, but it's the best job because when you see people and when I hear guys that you interview, and it makes me really proud. I mean, and you've interviewed and listening to Spragsy there, and where he was and I could see you choking yourself when you talking about Pine Valley and talking about these other courses he's
Oh,
been
no.
to. I mean, it's a dream come true. But this is the kind of thing that we do, Steve. We do make dreams come true for these guys, and it's very satisfying, and it's really important. And I got to a point where, I could have retired ages ago, but I got to a point where I realized we have an obligation to do this. We need to help these young people, young men or young women, come and do something like this because if you don't have that pathway, there's a bad reputation for the States right now. Oh, there's all these illegals. Oh, you can't get in. No, with us, we make it very easy. Ask any one of them how easy we make it for them. They gloss over it. Oh, yeah, I got the visa. My company sorted. Boom, boom, boom. They don't know how much paperwork goes in behind it, Steve.
I'm sure,
You know,
mate, I'm sure there's a lot. The setup that you must have to be able to do what you do so efficiently, right? Because there's lots that goes on from the individual side to pack up their lives, to
yes,
get over there
yes,
and do all that.
yes.
But you have streamlined everything so that it's very easy to make it happen. You sign on to the program, you get through, you get in, you get appointed to a location. All of that, if someone had to try and do that on their own from overseas that has no idea how the gates work in the US, like that's you've done a lot of work. The program has done a lot of
Yeah,
work, and that changes no doubt from time to
yeah.
time as governments change, I imagine too.
Oh, trust me, right now it's changed. And what we tried to do is make it as seamless as possible for them so they gloss over it
Yeah.
and they just know. But I coach them. I coach them on how to do it properly and I help them. And you don't realize that, to do it properly, we do it because we have a very bad image right now. Let's face it. I mean, we do. But when you have a young man or young woman who comes in here and has a fantastic experience, that raises our image of the turfgrass industry in America. And so I feel a very big weight on my shoulders. I feel an obligation to do this for these young people. And, before I used to get criticized because I didn't go over to Perth and WA. I got myself on a plane and I went over there and I then got myself up to Kalgoorlie and
Yeah.
I watched
Wow.
a couple of good bar fights inside in Kalgoorlie on a Saturday night. A couple of good old girls having a good old fisticuffs. Me and Pat Casey. I don't know if you know Pat
Yes.
Potsy.
No. Pat. Yes. Yes. When he was at Cal, now he's a super at Royal Perth. I don't know if you know that.
He's a superhero part,
Yeah.
and Pat came on the program, and I tell you what, it changed his life because he was from Adelaide.
Hmm.
He was rough around the edges, I can say that, but I put him in with a tough super over here that kicked his butt, and I'm so proud of him. I'm
Oh,
really proud of him for
you
what
know,
he's done.
to look at where
And
he's gone, what he did at Cal, and they were hosting the WOPGA there for a period that he was there for, and now he's over at Super at Royal Perth, and they're rebuilding the
yeah,
golf course over there. With Mike Clayton's involved with Harley Cruz. I mean, he's doing an incredible job, and his career is
yeah,
going so well, which is
yeah.
fantastic.
But you have to have credibility in this game, and you got to get on a plane and go to places like that. And I played with the mayor of Kalgoorlie and Pat on a
Yeah, right.
Sunday morning, and I mean, this guy was just amazed. He's like, "You're from America? Like you came to Kalgoorlie?" I said, "What's wrong with that, mate? I come up here, I want to see the course." But these are the kind of people that, if you want to earn the respect, if you're going to get the young people out of Australia today, you've got to have gone and done that. And I don't know if you know a guy called John Forrest,
No.
there in Perth. He was a teacher, a turf teacher over there, and John was a great guy in the TAFE over there. And you've got to go and visit those courses. Trevor Strahan, who was up at Lake Carnup. People like that know you in the industry Australia. It's no good for me to just be impressive up here.
Yep.
You've got to spend the time impress the flesh, Steve. That's very important today.
It does make a difference. There's no two ways about it. And certainly in Australia, we sometimes feel like we are on the other side of the planet, even though we are on the other side of the planet. but it is something that we feel like we're very much removed from the masses of the world because we are so far away, and that goes to an extension to New Zealand as well. And it does make a difference to get someone like yourself here in person to go, hey, oh, you are here. Like you've made the effort to come to here. That carries a lot of weight for people in this part of the world. And certainly then you make the effort to go to somewhere like Cal. And for anyone listening, Kalgoorlie is not local to anywhere. It's far enough. WA is removed enough from the mass population of Australia, not that we have a huge one. And then you get to Kalgoorlie, which is, I think it's close to 1,000 kilometres or something further to the east of Perth, out in the desert. And I don't know if there's anything quite like that in the States. It's so removed from anywhere. But we've got lots of locations that are isolated like that. It's got a championship golf course on it that's hosting a very, very high-level tournament that's a regular in the WA PGA here in Australia on our tour. And you're out there flying in. It's just a mining town. Without being rude to the people of Kalgoorlie, it is a mining town, and it's really only there because of the gold mine, the super pit they call it, which is 300 metres deep, for anyone who's wondering. And I think it's deeper than that now. But that makes a difference. It carries a lot of weight, mate. So very impressive that you get the opportunity and you take the time and in your busy schedule to fit those sorts of visits in. And that does carry a lot of weight.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean, in fairness, though, there's nothing better than getting out into a bar inside in Kalgoorlie. I mean, that's what I love about Australia. You get to meet the real people, and you get to see the real country, and that's what makes it fun for me. So, I mean, I make the time. I make the time. I mean, I think I did 11 flights in that one trip when I went down to Australia.
Wow.
I mean, it was grueling, to get around everywhere, but that's why when people ask me here in the States, they say, now, Mike, we're looking at this application. How well do you know this young man? Like, how can you justify placing him here? And I said, well, when you hire an American, do you know the teacher that taught them? Do you know the superintendent who was with before? Do you know the people involved in his background? And they're like, no, we don't. I said, well, I do.
Yeah.
I know the teacher who taught him, Peter Lariche in Adelaide. Somebody like Phil Ford in Melbourne. And I make that. I know the super who taught him. Richard Forsyth.
Yeah.
Young man. I have a young man over here right now, Huey Ryan. He's at Bethpage for the Ryder Cup. He's setting up for the Ryder Cup.
Wow.
And I mean, I took the time to know everybody who was involved with Huey to make that decision to put. Can you imagine coming up here and doing a Ryder Cup? I mean, how good is that?
That's incredible. That will be an incredible experience, like no other.
So that's why when people see, like, how do you make the decisions? How do you know where to place people? Well, when you know their background, when you know the family background, when you know the psychology behind the individual. And I don't just talk to the super, I talk to the assistants or whatever. Many times these kids don't know how many people I know on the ground on the team already.
Yeah.
So you got to know what you're doing in this job, Steve. You're going to make these decisions. You're going to change somebody's life.
100%. You are dealing with people's lives and getting them the opportunities that they're looking for, and it can fail both ways dramatically if it's not well thought out. If you're not doing your part of it, that the young people are putting their lives and their careers in your hands. So you have, doing all the work that you do, that you're helping people, and you're also holding their lives in your hands as you pass them through your program and get them to where they want to go. You're the means to get them to the opportunities that they're looking for. And they are some of the most staggering opportunities: the Ryder Cups, US Opens, PGAs. It's just an incredible experience that I can't consider because I didn't do it. But I hear about it, I see about it, I talk to people like yourself, obviously, who's running it. I talk to the participants who have been on there that are superintendents now that have been through it. And they've got nothing but unbelievable things to say about their experience.
When I listen to your podcast with Shane and I think back, Shane would tell you himself that he was a shy young man, that really, he struggled socially because he wasn't that outgoing, rah, big beer guzzling kind of guy, and when he came up here, he got to learn that every cog in the wheel, everybody he got to meet was somebody he could stay in touch with.
Yeah.
And now look at him. Look at him now traveling. I
Well, he
mean,
was back there
I,
this year for the Open, wasn't he?
he was. He worked the open. I mean, and he had all these mates from the time when he was here. It's changed his life. So
Yeah.
he has a job back there at Mossman Park, but he can get on a plane and go anywhere in the world because he's got friends. I think he went down to Barbados to visit one of his
Yeah.
English buddies.
Yeah, he said he was
I
going
think
down
he
there to
did.
the West Indies. Yeah, 100%. And
Guess
he's
what? The guy he's going down to see, Wesley, was on the program at the same time with him at Oakmont, 20 years ago. So,
it's so good to hear. And Shane and Shane even has another string to his bow. He's the current president of the West Australian Golf Course Superintendents
yes, sir.
Association. So he's
Yeah,
representing the state in the
yeah,
people of
yeah,
the industry there, and that helps through our national bodies, and that helps
yeah.
lift the people up that are running through our industry with his experience and all those things. So your influence on people's careers isn't just their career, like you talked about, and what you're trying to do for the US. That
Mhm.
is carrying through to where people return home, and then in
Well,
our greenkeeping industries,
mm,
right?
yeah. Well,
It's
the good
it
the
is.
good thing is that people like Mark Unwin at the
Yep.
ASTMA, they see that, and I encourage it. And we set that example over here. We get them all to join the GCSAA. When they're here, they see that there's power in numbers. They see that they need that association when they go back into the profession. And Shane is doing what we call here at Ohio State paying forward.
Yep.
He got the benefit back in the day.
Yep.
He's now paying forward by being the president of the chapter in Western Australia. And he's a great guy. If I ever need a recommendation on a young man from WA, I'll say, Shane, do you know this guy? He's like, no, Mike, I don't, but I know he's super. I can make a phone call,
Yeah.
and that's what he does. And that's what we want to see in these young people is to be involved, be engaged. If you do have a problem, you have an association behind you that's going to help you. So that's where we're very involved. I mean, with all of the, with all of the guys involved in the association in Australia, that they get engaged as they go into the profession themselves, Steve.
It's very good. It's far-reaching, certainly down here in Australia and in part to New Zealand as well. The few people that I've spoken with that have been through it, that are now superintendents on their own, in their own right, or have been through those career parts of their lives. Mate, I remember, and I think I'd mentioned this to you we'd spoken last year actually, because I was. When I finished my time, the Ohio State program was an opportunity that I didn't take on, but I did my time in the Blue Mountains, west of Sydney. And I remember a young fella who was doing his time, I think he was a year behind me. He finished the year behind me, and he was working at Blackheath Golf Club, which is only a couple of townships away. And Nick Colfax was the apprentice at the time. And I think I said to you, no one that I knew of had gone on the program, but Nick had picked it up, and I think he went to Congressional
Yes,
and
sir.
did his time there, and he has since moved away from the industry. But that was my memory during my time to see Nick
Yes,
Colfax. I think
yes.
you remembered Nick when we
Oh,
spoke.
yes, I did. Nick volunteered with me at Congressional for the 2010 US Open. He came back, and how I knew something was up was I said, how are you feeling? Because you come off that plane, you got to be exhausted. He goes, nah, mate, I flew business class. And I go, you flew business class? What the bloody hell? Golf course is paying you enough to fly business class. He goes, nah, mate, I'm in the mining business now.
Yep, yep.
And he's making bags of money. He was staying at a ritzy hotel downtown. We were staying in a dog track, and it was just terrible. But what a good guy though Nick was. And
Oh,
look at him. He
yeah.
flew back. He flew back to volunteer. He was out there with us. And I said to him, how good is this? And he goes, Mike, this is the best job in the world. I mean, it's amazing. And to come back to Congressional and to be involved and all the team getting back with all the guys, he missed the hell out of it. I mean, yes, I know you make money in the mining business, but you know what? There's nothing compared to the turfgrass industry and the people in it, Steve. That's what's worth the value of the whole thing. So, yeah, you remember Nick Colfax? He was he
Yeah.
was he was close to you.
Yeah. No, we all went to TAFE together in a similar time, and yeah, there was a good group of us in the mountains at that time. Back when the mountains had a good group of golf courses that they were putting a few apprentices through.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I do remember Nick. We're a similar age, so there you go, mate. I got to ask you specifically, and maybe you've touched on some of these points. What is it in your mind that makes the Ohio State program work so well? Is there a heap of things? Is it the people? What is it from your side that makes it work? Because it does work.
Yeah, well, great question. What makes it work so well for Australians is your education and what you do from an education standpoint, because you're very practically hands-on in your education, your apprenticeship system that you have in Australia. Very, very practically based education. And what we are on the other side is very theoretically based education up here. So what we do is we kind of marry that for the boys and girls that come up. They come in here and they haven't got the biggest technical background in all of the science and technology that's out
Yep.
here in the States. And a lot of the golf courses are high end, so they have the budgets and they have the technology.
Yep.
And then they come in here and they get to do that. They have a practical sense, and then they learn the theoretical and actually architecture as well. Golf course architecture is a very big part of the golf course industry that they don't always get the time to learn
Mm.
in TAFE, and they don't have an appreciation for the particular individual designs, the Greg Norman designs, the all your architects down there today and like the Fazios and all that stuff. But when they're here, they get that. So you end up with a very well-rounded superintendent as a result of the program. So that's why it works so well. You mix both together. If you're just a greenkeeper in Australia, you miss out on so much, Steve. You miss out on the detail, the technology, the people management side of the business that they're
Yep.
so good at up here in the States.
Yep.
And they come out, and that's why you have people like Pat, people like Shane. You got guys all over the country in Australia that are superintendents now, and they're there, and they've had really got that success as a result of being on this program up here.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. Even I was just meeting with the Society of Australian Golf Course Architects just last week and talking about how, a lot of us greenkeepers don't have that appreciation for architecture. We don't really learn about it. But my question to a lot of greenkeepers out there is, how do you look after a space if you don't know architecture when that's an inherent part of the sport of golf? So I think it's something that we need to do better here in Australia, and being involved in the Ohio State program is you get exposure to that, which is huge.
Yes. Yes, I mean it's just very important, and with that combination, I mean, not only do they go back to Australia, I got a guy called Steve Johnson now. He's running a golf course in India, and he's got that connection to where he's got the politics. He knows how to handle people. He knows he's an Aussie. He's from bloody Brisbane, and his brother is down there in Brisbane, and he's the nicest guy in the world. But Steve has got that finesse as a result of being on this program, and he would be a great interview. Let me tell you, he's traveled the world. I mean, but that's why the program's so successful, Steve.
It does a lot for us down here in this part of the world. There's no two ways about it in carrying, and I keep saying it because it does have a lot of weight. Mate, I'm curious to hear a little bit, and we've touched on some bits and pieces about your work with the different golf clubs and the exposure, the placements that people get. There is no doubt a great deal of work that goes into keeping those relationships, getting those relationships, because I can't imagine that there'd be too many of the Oakmonts of the world that if you just went up and knocked on the door and said, listen, hey, I've got a couple of young fellas from overseas, they want to come and work on the team for the biggest tournament that's on television in the world. What are your thoughts of just taking them on? So that there's curating that relationship, right, and then maintaining that, and obviously the respect that they have for your people that you're bringing over. Like you said, you vet them and all that type of thing. How much work goes into keeping those relationships and then maintaining them and building more?
Well, I tell you, I look over my shoulder here and I'm talking to you, and I see a yellow flag back there. That's Pebble Beach, and I'm sure you know Pebble Beach.
Yeah, yep,
I was
can't
in
miss
a,
it.
I was, I was, I was in a bar in Augusta, and this big tall fellow. I had two pitchers of beer in my hand, and I'm walking through these people, and this guy stopped me. He goes, "You're Mike O'Keefe," and I said, "Yeah, I think I am." Yeah, he said, "Oh, mate, I'd love to work with you." And I said, "Well, mate, I'm kind of busy right now. I got some beers for the boys. And I said, "But do you have a card?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he stuffed the card in my top pocket. And I walked away and I never thought about it. And that night, as you're dumping all your stuff and you're back in the house, and I looked and I go, "Where the bloody hell did I get a Pebble Beach card? I don't remember." So you want to talk about curating places? You can imagine how embarrassed I was in the phone call to Chris. I go, "Chris, I'm sorry, man. I must have met you last week, but I don't remember you." And he goes, "You were the guy with the two pitchers of beer." And of course you're Irish. I figured it was you. You're drinking two pitchers of beer. You got to be down to earth with these people. You got to be genuine. And you know what? Over the years, I've worked with him, and what I've done is I've gone out there and I've studied the team, what kind of people he has on the ground. And I realized you don't need some bloody rock star to go into Pebble Beach. You need a genuine down there. I have a young man right now from Cape Kidnappers
Yeah, right.
in New Zealand out there working with the team. You have to study the team. You have to study what they want, the customer, Steve. It's very basic, And when I look at some of the other golf courses up on the wall right there, I mean, Quail Hollow, superintendent down there, Keith Wood, you know, they know what I'm doing is genuine. And you talk about Oakmont. John Zimmers, I was at a trade show and he came up to me. He said, Mike, I've heard a lot about you. I'd love to work with you.
Yeah,
And
wow.
John is a family man. He looks after his team like family. I know his wife, Tracy. You learn the psyche behind the name, Steve. It's not the name that's the big deal. It's the people behind it that make the great golf courses. I look around here and I see Monterey Peninsula. When I look at all these courses, Bridgestone, Firestone up there, it's amazing when you see it. But people don't realize that with the really good teams here, they pull the kids in and they're part of a family. If you saw in the news at Oakmont there recently, they were singing in the
Yeah,
break room.
yeah,
Did you
yeah.
see that?
Did see those videos. Yeah, that went around social media here. Definitely.
And other people give me crap because the Americans, they have donuts in the morning. Well, they fire people up in the morning at 4 o'clock in the morning with all that sugar rush. You know, they they have a psyche of how they pull you in as a team player. And that's really what I do is I genuinely have relationships with these people. I had a very hard phone call earlier today before you got on here with Paul Latshaw Jr. And it was the hardest thing ever to talk on the phone with Paul about his dad. Well, I know his dad personally. I mean, his dad called me one time. He was going to be a speaker for me, and his wife was in the hospital. And he said, Mike, I can't make it, but I'm going to get John Zimmers to come and talk for you. It's those relationships that make success today, Steve. And this is the thing that I stress to young people is you can't go through life without actually learning about the human side of this industry. You got to learn the people. And every flag on my wall back there, I could tell you a story about them. Seminole, the superintendent, you probably heard of Seminole. It's an
Yeah, yeah,
amazing top
yeah.
100 golf course.
Yep.
The superintendent down there, Nelson, I knew him as an assistant 20 years ago in Kingsmill. He was with Denny Cook, Cookie from the Australian.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
And and he remembered me when he went for the job at Seminole. I tried for 15 years to get in there and I couldn't get in there. Well, he got interviewed for the job and they asked him a question. They said, Now, Mr. Nelson, what about internships? Everybody's talking about interns today. What are you going to do about the internships? Are you going to get an internship program? And he called me. He said, Mike, I'm sorry, but I used your name. He said, Well, I know this guy. He's Irish, and of course, Jerry McElroy was in the interview, I believe, and he said, "Well, this Irish guy, and I've worked with him years ago, and a Sunday night my phone rang, and it was Nelson." I said, "Nelson, what's going on?" He goes, I got a job at Seminole and I used your name that I could get interns from you. And I go, Oh, that's very nice, Nelson, but I don't have any interns. It took me 1 year to find the right intern for him. So to answer your question, this is how we do it. Every single one of those flags behind me has a story, Steve. And it's people management. That's what it is.
It's quite, and I go back to being quite remarkable. It's great just to hear how you go about it. It's, you know what, and I don't know how many people have spoken to you in this way about what you do, but it's hearing your passion about the people, and I don't think that's something very common in our industry, is having someone who's so passionate about the individuals that work and that work together in our industry of greenkeeping. And maybe it's only in America that it's like that. And that's the other thing I hear you say and I hear you talk about, and we see that. You mentioned Oakmont and the singing. You talked about how people are treated like family. Again, I don't know that even in Australia there's many examples of how teams feel like that. There are some, I'm sure, but we hear about it and we see about it much more in America. You guys have a really passionate way of connecting people when you're working together every day. There is that family feeling that these things come across, and I've not experienced it, but these are. I think this is why people keep talking about the Ohio State program and working in the US, because they get such a closeness. I was talking. I can't remember who it was. One of the other interns that have been over in the US that they're an Aussie, and they were like, we have a group of people that have been to, I think it was Oakmont, and we catch up every so often and we talk about our experience at Oakmont. Only that can happen from the way that they feel being involved and being in that group and participating, and there's stories, there's connections. It's a really close thing.
Steve, when you have to do what they have to do, I mean, these young people will walk through fire for you. They'll walk through fire for you because they believe in what you're doing, and they bring you in like family, and they involve you in the management of the golf course. You feel a part of that team, and you're in the meetings and you're involved. And when there's mistakes made, you see it. You see the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's nobody hiding stuff from you. And that's why they go out and they're so good as superintendents later themselves, because they've been right involved in the highest level of golf course management in America. That's why the bloody program is so good, because they're very much brought into the team itself. You're not an intern. We call it an intern program. You're a key part of it. I remember being down one time with a lad down on a Saturday night. We're having dinner with a kid. He was a Kiwi, and we were at Sawgrass, and I said, "What are you doing tomorrow? What jobs you got?" "I'm spraying greens." And he said, "Do you want to help me?" And I said, "Sure, why not? Put on the suit, put on the mask, put on the gloves, whatever." And I'm out there, and I'm looking at this kid, and he's skinny as hell, and I'm a fat bugger, and you're walking. It's 30 degrees C, Steve, and I'm out there, and 5 or 6 greens. The super pulls up next to the green. And he looks over and he goes, "Mike, is that you?" And I said, "Yeah, Jeff, how are you going?" And he goes, "What the hell are you doing? He's after killing 2 Mexicans on me. He's going to kill you. You can't do this." And I'm like, "Well, I'm hanging in there, but you have to have that passion. You have to know that you're going to do this." And I mean, some people criticize me saying, "Oh, you work these lads to death." There is nobody on this program that's doing something because they're forced to do it. Every single one of them. Talk to Glenn Gibson Smith. Talk to Spragsy. If they're doing the hours, they're doing it because they believe in the job that's at hand, Steve. And that's the beauty of this kind of thing.
You're quite right, because I hear them talk about the work that they do. And make no mistake, I think if you're outside the greenkeeping space looking in and hearing these stories, you probably think working 70, 80 hours a week is ridiculous. But when you have a major tournament on, when you've got a televised tournament, one of the biggest tournaments in the world, in fact, that's coming. You're coming from the industry. It's all there in front of you. You're not going in blind. If you're going in blind, then you probably haven't been... You're probably not, in the right space anyway. But I've never heard one person say to me ever that it was ridiculous. We did some, it was just not right. All I've ever heard is, we did 80 hours a week, Steve, and we did some amazing things, and it was the best tournament I've ever worked on, the best people I've ever worked with. I've got lifelong friends. And it's like they just go straight past it, like they mention it because it was part of what was involved, and it was a key part of it. But it was like they got so much from it because they were doing that. That's what it was. Without being all in, right? I don't think you can get those things to take away. You have to be all in. No. And I think that's a key part of it as well, is that going over there, people get a realization that this is what it takes. This is what's involved. This is how we, as Americans, and I'm speaking from the outside, I don't think I'm speaking on behalf of anybody, but this is how we do it, and this is what it takes. And you're part of the team, and if you want to be involved, we'll take you, and we'll show you everything.
The Super Quail called me and he said, "Mike, you're coming down for the PGA, right?" And I said, "Oh, Keith, you want me to come down?" He goes, "Absolutely, Mike. I think I got close to 10 or 15 of your past students coming back." And I was like, "What? Are you serious?" He goes, "Yeah." And I have a picture on my screensaver here. There's 16 young people there, and every one of them's got a smile on their face. You talk about people like Lockie and all these other boys that came back from Portugal, from Australia, from France, you name it. And that's the passion. And to fly all the way from Australia back, how good is that? What has that done to you to make you do something? Look at Shane, flying back and what he did.
I know. And he loves going back and visiting the friends that he has now over there. Lots of people that come back to Australia, they talk about their lifelong friends. And if they get an opportunity to go to the, is it the GCS AA.
Double A.
Yeah,
Yep.
over there, and they'll catch up if they get a chance to do it, traveling from representing a golf course that they're now involved with here as a super or an assistant, and they get sent over there. They talk about the catch up. They have an opportunity to meet with the people that they used to work with or they've got experience with, and it's lifelong. It's career long.
Yeah, it is.
It's amazing. There are amazing relationships that come from all those years ago when they were apprentices and they finished their time here in Australia that went and they look back. I just love hearing the stories. It carries so well. I've got to ask you, mate, I do work here with John Deere in Australia and supporting the Women in Turf program, and I'm curious to know how the program goes with females. Do you see many people coming through? Have you seen it change over the years?
Yes, absolutely. We have an initiative here with Syngenta where we really try to get more females into the industry. And I mean, the dynamic is there. We all know that they're underrepresented.
Yeah.
And it's a question of how do we get them in? But I will tell you one thing that I laid down the law with them, and they give me funding to help them. And I said, the one thing I will not do is bring in a female who's not capable or who's not deserving of the position. And I've laid that law down, and I can safely say, hand on heart, I have a young lady from Morocco. She was recruited by an Australian that's a superintendent in Morocco, put her forward to me. I have a young lady from England, Daisy, recruited by a superintendent that I know down the south of England. Tough as nails. She's hearing impaired, but she's a lovely young lady and she's doing wonderful. And then I have a young lady from Uganda, from Entebbe at the moment. And we give them a certain amount of support and funding when they come in here.
Yep.
And the American superintendents are amazing. They love to get them in here because you know yourself, you've been in the shed. When you have a female in the shed, it changes the dynamic. I mean, you see a different side of the boys, and then when you have a female in there, they get to see this side of the business, and it's wonderful for them. And you know yourself as well, women are much better on machines than men are. I mean, so
they are, and I'm not talking out of school here because I did have a female, Renee, who was working with us at Katoomba for a period of time. It is so good having a female in your team, and I don't know why everything just settles down. People become much more attuned to what they're doing.
Yep.
Everyone becomes a little bit more at ease with things. But talking about the way that females have this innate sense to look after the things that they're using, the machinery, that they do things properly, they do things with care, they don't thrash things out, I don't know. It's just, and I love having when we had Renee with us in our team at Katoomba, it was a breath of fresh air, and I hear that a lot from a lot of people, and it is something that we do talk about in that way because it's not common in the past. It's never been common in the past. So to slowly get more and more females in the way that the industry is turning, we've got to talk about it, we've got to promote it, we've got to show that there's opportunities to do that, and we're doing that here in Australia, and you guys are doing it in the States. I think it's great. We'll do more.
I listened to your podcast there where you interviewed some young ladies. You were down at a golf course, and I love to hear their passion.
Yep.
And I will tell you, not as to put this as a cheap advert or anything, that we would love to have more females from Australia because I've had a wonderful young lady by the name of Penny Deehan come up from Australia years ago, and we have the opportunity for them. And I noticed there's a number of females in the business in Australia now. I just don't know. There's a young lady over at Glenelg.
The Sophie Warren. Sophie. I've had her on the podcast. Yeah.
I would love to see her when she wants to come up here to the States. I would love to see her come up here and do the program because we have the framework in place for them to come up, and we get them some extra funding if they want to do it to promote women in turf. We have the wherewithal to help them out. So I love to see them in the industry because they're bringing a different perspective completely.
Absolutely, and you're quite right. I've had Sophie on. I've had Kate Rainsbury on. I've had the women from the Women in Turf program that was down with Terry, who was a super at Cobram Baruga Golf Club, and that was the 6 participants from right across Australia that John Deere were involved with, and chatting with them here, you talked about hearing their passion. They're scattered all over the country. There was a stack of them that each and every one of them come from different backgrounds, and they weren't all golf. Some of them were working in with councils as well. Yeah. But the common thread was they were passionate. They love what they did, and they love looking into the turf space and maintaining turf spaces in all its different forms. And there's more of that. There's more of that out there that we don't see.
It's funny when I saw him kick the program off, they used a photo of one of my gals, Susanna Fry from over in Adelaide,
Right.
on the picture, and then there was a Polish girl as well. That,
That
that
might have
was
been was that Martina?
Martina.
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
now with Enview, and they are part of that program as well this year. It was Enview and John
yes,
Deere. Martina,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
is with Enview now. She's
Well,
working with Enview.
I'll tell you a funny story about Martina. She came from Poland, and they don't have a lot of golf courses over there. And she came, she said, I want to do this turf program. I said, well, you have no experience in turf. You got to go get a job in a golf course. She goes, nobody will hire me. I said, well, have you ever heard of the word volunteering? And she goes, well, nobody volunteers here. I said, well, go to a golf course and ask them if you can work for free. And you know what she did? She is very strong-willed, let me tell you. And I love the fact that she had that passion. She came over here and I said to her, I don't know if you can pass these seminars, these classes. And she goes, well, just try me. Let me see what I can do. She sent me a picture with both of the certificates. We do an online course when you come on the program if you want to do it. It's not compulsory. And she took that, and everything she did was a battle. And every time I tested her, she passed it. And look at her now. She's working for OnView. She worked at a number of golf courses around Australia, and she's in there with OnView learning the ropes with them. I don't know if you've met her in the past, have you?
Well, mate, it's funny you say it's funny you say that, and I hope she does listen to this podcast episode. I'm sure she will, because just last week, as you know, we had our ASTMA
Yes.
conference, and I did catch up with Martina, and we'd spoken a little bit in the past recently, and it was good to catch her, and she spoke to me about her career path to where she was, because I didn't know her career path, and we were talking about exactly what you just said then, how she came from Poland, had no experience, wanted to do it, and you were like, no, you've got to get experience, you've got to go. And the way that she was describing it, like, it's exactly, and I know you're laughing. I was laughing when you were telling me the story, because it only happened 5 or 6 days ago, right? The way that she told the story with such passion, and she's just like,
Yeah.
I don't care what Mike says, I'll just go and do it then, righto. And I'll show
Yep.
him that I'll get it done,
Well,
and then I'll come back, and then we'll go, and I'll go over to the US as part of the program. It's like, she was just
well,
like, well, it's a bullet, a red flag, a red rag to a bull, I
well,
should say. And yeah,
remember, my background's in human psychology, and part of what I do is to test them and to question their ability. And there's nothing worse than questioning a Polish girl's ability. Let me tell you, it's a red rag to a bull.
yeah,
And I'm very proud of her because she stepped up and met that challenge. And look, let's face it, it's not easy for women. And I can't be any better, or I can't be, favoritism. No, I'm not going to do
mm,
that. They're going to earn their chips. And she earned her chips. Just the same with Penny Deehan and all the other young ladies that are on the program right now. They have to go through the hard yards. And if they do, they have credibility and respect in the shed when they do that.
yeah,
And there's a flag up on the wall over there from the Ryder Cup in Rome, and the young lady who was the superintendent came on my program, and the same thing.
wow,
She had to earn it the hard way to be the superintendent. You know how hard it is to run a Ryder Cup and all of the stuff that goes wrong? I mean, it's unbelievable. She got on a video with Toro, and she said, I learned this stuff in the States. Without that program, I wouldn't be where I am today. And it's true because she earned it the hard way, not the easy way. And that's why, so when you ask me about women in the program, absolutely, 100% we support it, Steve.
no, mate, that's great to hear, and hopefully the women that are listening, that are seeing that is there opportunities for something like this, it's very much a yes, and I would love to hear more Aussies being able to potentially get involved in the right people at the right time, which is fantastic. I wanted to make sure that we got that out, mate. To hear about it for sure. I've got to ask you, what have been some of the biggest changes in greenkeeping that you've seen come into the trade over the years? You've been doing it for a long time, and you've seen lots of different people, lots of different places.
Well, definitely the need for more education. I mean, the technology is moving so quickly now. If you don't keep up and what's happening technology wise, if you're not going to the ASTMA conferences, if you're not staying up on things, you're going to get left behind. And getting young people today to realize that they need that more education, getting young people realizing that they have to be better communicators. You know, in the old days, we didn't have to be on these kind of podcasts and doing all this kind of stuff. You have to be more fine tuned. You got to be more presentable. The golfer today is demanding more, better conditioning. speeds, agronomics, everything like that, if you're going to keep up with the Joneses on your golf course. Now, granted, Steve, you got to understand, I'm not going to be all things to all people and what
Sure.
we try to train people. I'm talking about the top tier golf courses.
Yep.
And the stuff that they learn over here, they can go back and apply it in any place. How you manage your people. This is the biggest thing today that they have to learn. It's no good being a good greenkeeper anymore. And I talk about, have you done any promotional videos? Do you know how to stand in front of a camera? Do you know how to talk to people? This is the biggest change I've seen in the whole thing. And then there's the thing with us in America right now is we have a broad spectrum of chemicals we can use. Tomorrow, that's going to go away. And in
Mm.
Europe, they have less and less chemicals
Yeah.
available.
Yep.
So you got to produce a product with a lot less things. You got your hands tied behind your back. They can't use a lot of the products we use here in the States. So I'm talking to the guys coming in here and seeing what's happening in America and knowing you're going to go back to Australia and you won't have near as much
Mm.
product. So you got to be more educated. You got to be more environmentally sensitive. What are we going to use? How are we going to use that product? I mean, I see, when you see Nadeem out there and what they have, being more sensitive in what you use today, being more educated is what you have to be more sensitive to what's needed out there. That's the biggest change I've seen, Steve.
Very good points to hear you talk about it, and it goes back to a lot of that is how we present ourselves, right? Being the right person, being who you want to be, and you talked about education there, and I have to say something and call out a young fella that come up from Tasmania to the ASTMA conference, young Hudson Summers, who's a third-year apprentice at the Country Club in Launceston, and it was great that Hudson paid his own way to get up to the conference off his own bat, and he's an apprentice because he's trying to work out how he can continue to be better and improve at what he does so that he can ultimately get the job that he wants and be where he wants to be. And that's the sort of thing that you hear from a Sophie Warren of the world who's taken the steps that she's taken, and Kate Rainsbury's down in the south of Melbourne, doing what they do. And it's fantastic to hear that you see that as a really big takeaway moving forward for people. So they know where to look. They know
Yeah,
what things to
yeah,
be better at,
yeah,
which is what I
yeah.
was looking for.
Yeah, I heard you talking to Hudson there, and I was thinking about that's a young man that's really taken the bull by the horns, taking the initiative to come up on his own. These are the kind of young people we need to identify because that's the initiative you need today. And I wish more young people would do that. They expect to be taken to the shows. Well, there's many of them that don't go to these shows, and to fly from Tasmania up to Sydney, that's brilliant. That's the kind of initiative we need. And these are the people that we will focus on and identify, hopefully, to give them more opportunities down the road. And honestly, that's the kind of thing when I look at an application, when I see an application and I've got a bunch of them on my desk right here, and I said, "Oh, you went to the show. How did you get to the show? Did your superintendent?" No, mate, I took the initiative to go myself. That's a major scoring point for me, let me tell you right there.
Yeah, no, very good to hear. Mate, I want to mention a name. You sent me an article photo the other day of Jackson Thorne, who's now in Royal Perth, the new assistant at Royal Perth Golf Club. What do you know about Jackson? Did he spend some time with you over there, did he?
Oh yeah, yeah. He came from Perth and he was very well recommended. And it was funny because, these guys, I love it when I talk to them and say, "Well, Jackson, I'm thinking of putting you into a course called Chevy Chase." And he goes, "Never heard of it, mate. Never heard of it. Where is it?" Oh, they all know the big name golf courses, but
Yeah.
they don't realize, that I put him in with people that I think, and he was a nervous sort when I went to him about, because I said, "Go do your research and you can do all the research in the world." But I put him in with an actual Aussie superintendent in Washington, D.C. And he
That's
was
Steve
super,
Britton.
super.
Is that right?
Steve Britton.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I've
Have,
got to get him.
have
I've
you
got to
had
get him on
Steve
the
on the
pod. I
pod?
haven't had him on the pod, but
Oh,
I know of him. So he's
well,
one that's sitting in the back of my mind.
okay. Well, he'd be a good interview, and you better be on your toes when it comes to golf course architecture because he's an
Yeah,
architecture buff.
yeah, we've
And
chatted a little bit. Yeah.
Jackson was at a level where he was very switched on, and I said, "This is going to be an excellent challenge for you because this guy is going to put you on your toes, and you better be ready for it." And in fairness, it worked out a charm. And he went in there, and I said to him, "Jackson, are you happy?" And he goes, "I'm very happy." And look at him now. He came on the program. I sent him out to the West Coast to LA. He went to Pine Valley. Steve was very involved. "Mike, where are you thinking? What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, let's flip him out to the West Coast." Wow. Okay, let's do that. Then let's flip him back into the East Coast, put him at Pine Valley. I mean, I heard you when you were seeing it. I mean, can you imagine being placed at Pine Valley?
Oh,
So,
mate.
and what he did, Stephen, you may not know this, but there's a visa that they can use from Australia once they're done with my program. It's a 3-year visa called an e-visa. And he went back to Steve to work
Oh,
with him because Steve was blowing the golf course up completely, new
yeah.
fairways,
Done a
new greens, new
stack of
everything.
work. Yeah.
And Jackson was involved in that right from the beginning. Can you imagine the experience he got? And
Wow.
guess what? Guess what Patsy Casey is doing right now? Pat is tearing up his golf course. And
Yep.
when it came time to get somebody, Pat called me and I said, Jackson's top notch. He's
Yep.
top notch. And I mean that's the molding of the program.
Yeah.
That's what makes me super proud to see a young man going back and benefiting Australia like that. But Jackson was good before I ever got my hands on him. He was good. I won't take credit for that.
But more experience through the construction work that he'd done, but also top level golf course work that he'd done, coming back, and now he's adding to Royal Perth. And having Pat as a
Yes.
super,
Yeah.
who's been through your program, he knows what that's like. I wanted to mention Jackson after you sent me the photo as well, and he's got the article in the magazine. But I
Mhm.
wanted to do that because he's come back. So he's gone. He's a real world capture of recently doing just that, being part of, and then bringing back to Australia his experience.
No, I mean, in fairness, I don't want to say I get criticism, but I don't control where these guys go eventually. We produce a product, we get them very well matched up and everything like that. And I have a lot of Australians that are down in Abu Dhabi and Dubai and places like that. They go on, but wonderful if they go back to Australia, but we're not in the business of forcing them to go back
No,
into Australia.
no, no, no.
I mean, I can think of somebody like Neil Edwards, who's up in Sherwood Country Club in Los Angeles, one of the biggest golf courses, making probably one of the highest paid superintendents in the world. I mean, but massive pressure. He's an Aussie. He's from upstate Victoria, salt of the earth
Wow.
kind of guy. So he finished up, in California,
There
and
you
he
go.
knows how to talk to. I mean, he's a guy that has clients like Wayne Gretzky, the famous hockey player. They come out and they question his greenkeeping ability, and he can stand up to them.
Wow.
That's the kind of guy. So you don't know where these Aussies are going to finish up, but we're
No.
preparing them for anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, Neil is an absolute legend. I mean, I'd love for you to get him on the program because his perspective comes from how to manage golf courses lean and mean in Australia. And Greg Norman one time was playing a course called Sandpiper, and he said to Freddie Couples, he said, "Who the hell is running this golf course? It's the first course in America that I see they're not pouring water all over it." Well, come to find out, it was a bloody Aussie
Wow. There you
and,
go.
and Greg called him up on the phone and said, I got to meet you, mate. I got to meet you. This is the kind of thing that I'm talking about that makes the Australians great around the world. You all travel very well, and this is where it comes from,
And
is that ability.
And you're right, because it's not about whether they go home or not, or come home, I should say, because a lot of them haven't. A lot of people who have been through your programs will potentially stay in the US, and they'll go to other parts, and some of them have gone to the Middle East, and some have gone to Asia, and some, and we hear those stories as well. I've heard plenty of those stories, and I think it's amazing that we need to think as people getting started in their careers that your greenkeeping career, you might start in a regional part of Australia. You might start in Western, in northern Victoria, or Western New South Wales, or out in the southern parts of WA. But you can literally go anywhere in the world, and without trying to belittle the program because it's so successful, the Ohio State program could be the means to get you there.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And I mean, when I think about these guys, Simon down there running the course in Dubai, came out of it, didn't know he was going to finish up in Dubai. Let me tell you, that's the last thing he ever thought he was going to be Simon Windsor. I mean, when I think about Steve Johnson from, Kipera, I don't know if you've ever heard of
I know
Kipera.
compare, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, up in Brizzy.
yeah, his brother is still there. Steve is running DLF, a monstrous course in India, huge
Wow.
golf course, huge tournaments. I mean, this is the thing. You never know where this program will take you, and the profession will take you if you want to travel. And I mean, I will help you if you come in on the program, and if you want to go on into the UK or whatever. I always remember one Aussie. I found out that he was working in a warehouse in London in November, and I was mad as hell because he was a good golfer and he was a good greenkeeper. And I said, find his number for me. And I called him up and I said, Are you in Windsor? Is that where you are? And he said, yeah, mate, I am, but it's November, Mike. I can't get a job in a guy. He knew damn well I was mad. I said, down the road from you is a course called Sunningdale. Oh, yeah, mate. I know Sunningdale. He said, but they've got a big bloody wall. You can't get in the gate. I said, on Monday morning, you go down and you press the 4-digit code and you go in the bloody gate. Oh, and what do I do then? I said, go ask for Mr. Wilson. Right, I'll do that. And what am I going to say to him? I said, get a fucking job, mate. And I'm swear to God. Now I had it teed up and I told, Mr. Wilson who he was, and he said, mate, if you think he's good enough, I'll hire him. I'll hire him. He went in there and he got a job on a Monday morning. And that's the thing about it is these guys don't realize that, we want them to stay in the profession. I don't want them losing. I don't want them jumping out of the profession because, Steve, today we lose so many people out of the profession. And it's our job to maintain them in the industry and make sure they stay in the industry. And that's a big part as well that I'm very conscious of.
It's an interesting point you raise because I don't know that we do that very well in Australia. I don't think we care. We nurture and try to retain some of our best people, that any of our people, don't worry about the best people, any of our people. I don't think we do a good enough job in this country of trying to do that, and we lose plenty to other industries and people just getting out of the industry and through not only that but stresses. I had conversations last week of people that are out of the industry that are sort of in different regions, and they're like, I don't miss those things. There's things that I don't miss. There's plenty that I do miss, and that's what I say all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't think we do a good enough job in Australia. That's what I'm saying.
I talk with my staff here about we got to be sensitive to the mental health side of the business now and see the red flags, catch the red flags, see the issues, and be able to get it out on the table and talk about it. And it's a big thing in this industry that if we do a better job of identifying it and getting people to talk about it and to find out what the problem that's creating the stress, then I think we will do a better job of retaining people in the profession.
I think you're right, and I think it is a big part to remember and to think of moving forward. Mate, I got a question, and this probably a little bit of a political question in a sense, and we've touched on some parts, but your program has challenges in what you do. We talked about with the visas and things like that as governments change, and you touched on what it's like at the moment. What are some of the things that you've had to adjust along the way as governments change? Has there been any headaches, things that have concerned you as governments change? Because in your time, you've been with it a while, there's been some big changes.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, we're kind of spoiled with Australians and New Zealanders. I mean, we don't have the issues. We have political issues now, bringing in Chinese students. It's a big factor and it's a big problem. We have political issues with the Africans because, believe it or not, the US government keeps a head count of how many people come in and how many people go back home or go out of the country.
Yep.
With Australians and New Zealanders, I mean, it's not a big deal. They can get into the embassy, no problem. They can get the visas. They do go back home or they do finish the program. And for the most part, they behave when they're over here. This is a big problem for us because we have very strict rules here, and if you toe the line, and don't forget, I work for Ohio State, but I signed the visas for the State Department.
Yeah, right.
So I'm basically the government that keeps an eye over everything going on, and we do have accidents, we do have issues, but from a political standpoint, we're more dealing with a political issue from a world stage of people saying to me, Mike, I don't want to go over there because it's dangerous, and I'm like, nah, mate, it's not dangerous. I mean, the type of clubs, the kind of clients we have here, it's not dangerous. We're going to get you the visa. We're going to get you. I got my own nephews and nieces back in Ireland saying, why would we go to the States? It's too hard to get a bloody visa. Well, they don't know what job I do myself. They don't realize it. But luckily with Australia, we don't have that. I don't see that drop off. Now, it's my job to make sure that I press the flesh and find the people in Australia and make the young people today, because this job keeps you humble. Glenn Gibson Smith might think I'm wonderful, and Pat Wilson down in, the courses down in New South Wales, wherever, think I'm wonderful. But it's the young person that's coming up in the TAFE, in the class, that doesn't know me and doesn't realize what I can do for them. So I have to be there to press the flesh with those people and tell them that this program is accessible to them. I have to be available for those young females that feel safe to come up here. And what I do, Steve, is you don't get to talk to me per se. I'll put you in touch with somebody that's been on the program.
Yep.
A Shane Baker.
Yeah.
I'll put you in touch with somebody, like Adam Strahan, Trevor's son out there in the West or whatever. Any one of those guys, somebody like Pat Casey. And you're going to hear from them what they felt going into the embassy, what they did when they got, were they welcome? I
Yep.
mean, the
Yep.
biggest disadvantage we have is that you've never been in America, Steve. When you come up here, you will see that passion. You will learn that passion, and I'm serious. I really love to see you come up here because you will understand why I'm so passionate about this. Because I've got great people here that love the Australians and the Kiwis. And I just did a podcast last week with Charlie Mercer,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he said the same very thing. He's like, all these people just love the program. They love going, what is it? And that's what it is. You have passion. And we want to build that back into the turf profession in Australia in the future is have these people like Shane that are super passionate about the industry.
Yep. Yeah, no, but it's a big deal. I would love to get over to the States at some point because it's a big part of what I do. I travel around and see the golf courses in Australia, and I could talk about them through seeing pictures and talking to other people, but it's like anything. You get so much more, and you understand so much more, and you get to talk with those people on the ground to learn in their space, and really feel what it's all about. There's a lot more to
Well,
feeling something.
yeah. Well, I love what you do is you get out there to the smaller courses around the country because, you grew up in the Blue Mountains, so you relate to those people
Yeah.
and you never forget where you came from. And that's a very important thing for me as well. I never forget where I come from. You got to stay humble in this business, Steve, no matter how big or the Royal Melbournes or the New South Wales or whatever. All those people came from somewhere and you got to stay grounded. And I tell my guys here, I said, hey, listen, don't get bigger than your own boots. You got to remember where you come from. And that's what I love about this profession is the Aussies that come in here, they're very genuine people in what they do. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve here is to get people that really want to be in this industry in the future because let's face it, we're growing future superintendents is what we're doing here, and we're trying to motivate them and we want to give them a chance to come and see something like this. I mean, you didn't get the advantage of doing this program, but all these other people did, and you're identifying them. And I mean, when you see a guy like a Nick Colfax and what it did for
Yeah.
him, and when you go out and I mean, people like Spragsy, people, they're all over the country in Australia, and that's
Scattered
what we're trying
everywhere.
to that's what we're trying to achieve here.
No, it's unreal, mate. Have you noticed any changes to young people over the years? So from 30 years ago to now, are young people, young greenkeepers, are they any different to what they were, or are they the same?
Yeah, yeah. There is a big difference. They're very switched on today. They're very communicated. They're very understanding of the world. They're not that distant anymore as they used to be. But they're also very needy, because
Okay.
they can get on their phones and complain or call their mom back home. In
Yeah.
my day, I had to write a bloody letter to my
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah. That's a fair point,
Today
actually. Yeah.
it's like this, Steve. So as a result of that, I have to be that much more on my toes. I mean, while I'm talking to you here, I'm answering a guy. How do I get to be a member of GCSA? I've already answered him on there. We have to be that much more attentive with these young people today. They expect answers. They expect results. And if you don't keep up with that, you're going to be left behind. I'm that much more switched on. I mean, I was just talking to one of my techie guys out here. He's got these glasses, these Ray-Bans, and he can voice the messages from his
Oh,
Ray-Bans.
they're the
Uh,
meta things, whatever the
yeah,
glasses.
yeah. And he's got
No
me
way.
learning AI. I mean, I've got to learn that stuff and I've got to realize if I don't keep up with LinkedIn, we've got to have more of these people on LinkedIn. And this is what I notice is these young people today, we've got to keep up with the Joneses in that sense. So to answer your question, yes, there's a big change. In the old days, if you got a couple of stubbies and you had a couple of guys that were happy, they were wonderful. There was nothing you didn't need to do for them. They were hardworking grafters. But today it's like, what have you done for me lately? And Steve, I'm not
Yeah.
complaining.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying to my people here, we have to be more attentive to them. If we're going to produce an excellent product, we have to be, and I'm pushing them to join GCSA. I'm going to pay, I had 40 young people go to the conference last year. I paid for every single one of them to take seminars up to $500 a piece, Steve.
Wow.
And guess what? You know what that means? I'm going to actually babysit them basically and pay for them to take education. And people wonder, how do you get the results? I'm not ashamed to say I just flat out pay for them to take that education because if I don't, they won't go and they
Yeah.
won't take the seminars. Now, granted, there's a percentage that will anyway.
Yeah,
The
sure.
Hudsons, those kinds of guys will do it themselves. Okay.
Yep.
But I'm paying for every one of them. Do you know how much that cost me? $20,000.
Yeah, right.
$20,000. Okay. But I have the backing and the support from industry to come to me and say to me, Mike, we love what you do. What can we do for you? Show me the money, baby. Show me the money
Yep.
because I'm
Yep.
going to invest in these young people. And guess what? They're going to be educated buyers out there in the industry down
Yeah.
the road if we get them in there. So you want to talk about change? Yeah, there's a big change and you better be ready to be able to accept it and serve these people better. And every single one of them will tell you they had a fantastic experience at the conference. And I just wish I could squeeze and put a plug in here for John Deere to get your butt up here sometime to the GCSA.
I'm all in for that one. I'm
You
all
know,
in for
and
that.
I think you'll be a better guy if we get you ass up here sometime. You'll be better understanding. I feel painful for you sometimes when I hear you talking about a guy. Where were you? You were at Oakmont. Oh my God, how did you get to Pine Valley? Poor Steve, man. You're a
Uh,
tortured greenkeeper, is what I call you.
tortured mind. It's interesting, but I hear you pick up on how the people are changing, and their I suppose their expectations are changing, and what they
Yes.
think they know is changing, and how they want to
Yeah,
function
yeah,
is
yeah.
changing.
Mm.
And it's kind of like hearing people talk about how other things have changed. Like you got to keep up with tech, or you got to keep up with expectations of golfers on the golf course. You've identified that is something and you've got to keep up with it because if you don't get the participants involved. So
Yes.
keeping
Yeah.
up with
Yeah.
people is an interesting
Mm.
one that we don't hear people. I don't hear people talk about that very much.
Yeah.
I only talk
Well,
about it in the negative way, which you said very clearly that you're not having a whinge. It's just about understanding that
no,
this is where we're at
no.
now.
But I see at the show last week, they had, what was it, 30 or 40 apprentices in there. We need more people to step up to be mentors, Steve.
Yeah.
They need to realize they have to do more for these young people. And credit to Mark and the people at AGCSA or ASTMA.
ASTMA. Yeah.
Um, they are doing a lot and they're bringing in these apprentices and they're doing stuff with them. You can't do enough to get these young people engaged. Get them in there, find a mentor for them, assign a mentor to them. I mean, look at Tim over there at Glenelg. He's trying to grow some young people. I mean, there's a lot of being done, but we can do more. And I have to do more. So I think it has to be out there because if we don't, we're going to lose those kind of young people because we have to make this industry, interesting for them. And not to plug the program, but dangle that carrot of the program out there saying, listen, you can
Yeah.
go around the world. If you get into this industry, if you do well, I know this guy in America and he can help you come over here. People like Pat Wilson went down and he worked at Wimbledon for God's sake
Yep.
when he came
Yep.
out. And he's from Pambala, Maroomba.
Yep.
I mean, you probably know where Pambala is, do
Yeah,
you?
right down the south coast. Pat's a fantastic human, absolutely, and
Yeah,
he was a great interview on the
sure,
podcast. And
sure.
he again, the worldly experience from being part of the Ohio program,
Yeah.
and he's got some core values that he really stands by, and he's very strong about, which is fantastic. The passion from Pat was incredible. He does a great deal of stuff for our industry, a lot of it
Yeah.
unspoken as well.
I could see it in him. He's picked up a lot of those ideas over. He's got his own fertilizer. Came up with the idea of doing his own mix. A lot of the stuff, getting the volunteers in, doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
He's picked up all that stuff along the way, and himself. Brad Foster down the road as well. Those two guys, they do fantastic things with people in the industry in the area as well. So and this is the kind of thing that I'm putting out there. We need to do more. We're not doing enough. And I'm not criticizing people. I'm just saying we got to identify this and what we do in putting them with good mentors over here. Let's face it. I mean, when you put somebody in with a good mentor over here, it stays with them for life, Steve.
it does. It does. I wonder, do you guys have? And look, hey, it's hard. We're 10% of the equivalent population over the same landmass, right? You got 330 something million people. We got 27 million people, right? Do you have any issues with getting young people interested in the trade of greenkeeping? Because over here, it's almost like at the moment, for the last 20 years, it's a never-ending fight to try and get people interested. And I'll mention Simon Snedden down at Gold Creek in Canberra, down the ACT, who's a superintendent that I've had on the pod, and he's trying to do work with schools and he's doing it off his own bat. He's not using a lot of help, but he's starting to get more help from the associations now, but he's getting into schools to try and get people to show interest in the trade, because we don't have that naturally here. Is it easier over there with so many people, or is it still the same battles?
Steve, it's worldwide. It's worldwide. I have the same problem in England. They can't get young people into the profession. It's a painful thing for me, because in the old days, it could be a shortage in one continent and they're fine in another continent. I feed off of that. But I can talk to a super up in Scotland and he's struggling to get somebody. I mean, it's terrible.
Is greenkeeping not sexy anymore? Is that what what it
not
is?
Sexy, exactly. I mean, the bottom line was the wages wasn't attracting them into it, but now the wages over here have come up, but they're trying to do something different. The universities were the feeder into the industry. Now the universities are struggling so much that the USGA, I've started with the USGA, they've started an apprenticeship program pretty much like Australia, bringing people in off the street.
Right.
And they're training people that have no background in turf whatsoever, and they're making it sexy. They're taking them out to golf courses. They're doing classes in the morning and working in the afternoon on the golf course. I mean, it's a terrible problem that's worldwide, and I'm devastated about it, because I can't run and find. In the old days, I'd bring 15 Australians up on one plane, coming up from the TAFEs in Australia.
Wow.
Hell, I had 3 Australians 2 years ago, and that's why I went back. Now I have quite a good batch of Australians this year.
Yep.
But it's just hard to find them. But the same thing in America here, and guess what's happening? And I'm not saying it's a direct result of it, but you're seeing more and more people with these robots out there doing all this work. It's mundane work that they don't want to do.
Yep.
So this is the result of this now, that they have so less people. They're finding other ways to get the jobs done around the golf courses. But that's a job you don't want anybody have to do, mowing driving ranges, stuff like that. I'm not saying that's what we're missing, but they're looking at ways to get more technology in that situation, Steve.
Yeah, it's the tech side of the world and how fast it evolves and moves. And I think I was just having this comment. I mentioned it on the podcast I released just yesterday or the other day, was about, will we get to a point where we're going to have tech people engaged and employed directly in maintenance facilities like we have mechanics?
Yep.
As technology moves, I think it's not far away.
No, but a lot of these young people today are very swift with the drones and all that side of the business,
Yeah, no, it's true. It's but look, I wanted to touch on the side of getting people into the trade, because if there's not people coming in, then you can't get them either. And we're talking about the Ohio State program. But not only that, we're talking about a broader sense in the industry. We're hearing golf courses that are being built. We've talked about some of the ones here in Australia. We know that they happen around the world in different parts. People are going to need to be looking after them and care for them. We need skilled people to be able to do that well, especially in a modern world where we're conscious about the environment. We're learning how to do more with less. You talked about having less chemicals and less tools in the toolbox in some parts of the world, which will only slowly creep into the parts of the world. Like, we have quite a lot compared to Europe that we can use. But those changes will come eventually. They will catch up with us.
Well, I spend a lot of time talking to the TAFE teachers about the program and using the program as a means to an end, and sending them on this program so that they go on and recognize they need more education. Now, you have a degree program, I believe, with Dr. Phil Ford down there in Melbourne that's coming online pretty soon, that they have that. More education is an important part of the progression in this industry, and having that available for them. In England, they have a degree online in turf that if they want to do it. But what we do subtly over here is we expose them to the additional education than the TAFE. There's the diploma you have there in Australia. But then when they get over here, they see the depth they can get into if they want to. And that's what we're talking about, making them aware of that they can go further in the field. And somebody like Steve Britton and all those guys see that over here. But so we have to have something for them, a carrot, to get them further along the line in this profession. And the program is a perfect way to do that and to get them more educated. Because let's face it, they all want better jobs. They all want to do more. And I get a lot of people coming to me saying, Mike, I'm back in Australia. What can I do? And I said, well, we have an online program you can do, 10 modules. You can do it at home at night at your own pace to go on and do more education. And we see that in them, that you could reach a glass ceiling in Australia, where if you want to do more education, it's difficult to get to do that kind. There used to be a master's program in Sydney, but I don't believe it's running anymore. So if they want to go further, it's a possibility when they travel to get that education.
No, you're quite right. And it's good to know that those opportunities are there. And that's really a big part, certainly coming from Australia, that those opportunities are available to go through the program and experience that in the US. Because the opportunities and the levels of which you can go further and deeper in the US are, I think, are greater in some respects than what we have available to us over here, even though we have some wonderful opportunities as well. Mike, maybe one last word on yourself about your passion behind what you do and what you've got that you can, for people here as we finish up the conversation. It's been a great conversation, mate, but any final thoughts for you and how people can best get in touch with you and things like that?
Well, I mean, regarding the passion, I mean, you can now understand why it's so easy for me to be excited about this, because I see all of these golf courses coming online in Australia. I'm looking at a map of New Zealand, 7 new golf courses being built in New
Yeah.
Zealand. Matt Goggin down there, building a golf course, the Furrows. There's other courses coming online up in Asia. It's a great time to be in this profession, Steve. I mean, it's a great time. I mean, I was talking to a guy over there in Murray Downs. I mean, there's a lot of money being
Yeah.
spent in this industry. I mean, and you see it and you know it, and there's a lot of redevelopment. So if there's a young person out there saying, oh, is there all this doom and gloom or what is it? No, there's opportunities out there. There's the ASTMA producing some great seminars. There's a great opportunity for a young person if they want to get in. They can travel the world. They can come over here to the States. They can go on to Europe. They can go into Dubai. I mean, Asia right now. Brad Burgess was in here last week from Asia. He's one of the biggest Australians in Asia. You got Nigel Taylor up there.
Yep.
They're slammed with business. I mean, Nigel is run off his feet, on his bike up there. I
Nigel's
mean,
a
they're
great
so
person.
busy.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of
He
stuff.
he was he was he was on the program. He was on the program, and I mean, they're building. What is it? 72 holes of golf up near Hanoi. That's a place you probably
Wow.
haven't
No,
been.
I haven't.
I've spent some time up there. They're growing golf like crazy in Vietnam right now. So if you're a young person in Australia, male or female, and you think, is there a future in this? Absolutely. We need you coming into this industry. There's great opportunities for you in this profession to do this. And that's why I'm passionate about it, Steve, because I've never seen it so good in the industry. For now, granted, you've got to get your education. You got to get your level 3 or whatever. And I should touch on the fact that over in Adelaide now, the ASTMA are teaching class over
Yeah.
there,
Yes, they are.
and
Yep.
it's a fact of life, that they are doing it because they see a need. And I know the guy that's running it over there, and they're making sure they're in touch with the supers out in Adelaide, and they're producing a young person that needs to be educated for the industry. And if it's lacking, they're stepping in to do it, and I see it happening. I can see the result of your education immediately when they come over here to the States, and I recognize that. Look, the TAFEs were being pressured because there's more money in brick keys and chippies and
Yep.
sparkies,
Yep.
and they weren't putting as much money into these TAFEs. And I don't know where you went to TAFE back in your day, but it's changed a lot. I deal with Curry TAFE. And what TAFE did you go to?
Mate, I went to Richmond and it doesn't do turf anymore at all, right?
There
So
you go.
we had Ryde, which has been around in Sydney
Yep,
forever,
yep,
okay, and we had Richmond. They
yep,
expanded to Richmond because of the expansion in Sydney and lots of turf and golf courses
yep,
and up the mountains, all that was happening.
yep,
And we had 3 first years when I started. That's how
yep,
many people they were putting through from all different facets of turf. By the
yep.
time Katoomba had closed and my time had finished it as a superintendent, some 20 odd years later, Richmond was done. There was no one else. There wasn't anyone interested in being an apprentice. In a 20-year turn, we went from being flat out to opening up a new TAFE to then being closed and it not being there at all.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
that's
I
how
just
far it's turned down.
Mhm. Well, I just want you to know that I watch the TAFEs very closely. I watch the quality of education in Australia, and I've been very much involved in that side with the TAFE teachers who've gone through some serious battles.
Yep.
And as a result of it, the ASTMA are stepping in now in
Yeah.
Adelaide because Peter Lariche was over there. So you have an obligation to better prepare these young people in Australia. And this is what I see in the quality over the years. I mean, I had rock stars back in the day that came through from excellent TAFEs and the Ride TAFE and whatever. And, it's amazing. Curry, all those TAFEs
Yep.
up in Queensland. I see it. And that's what I'm concerned about is that going to continue? You have to produce good education for these young people today to make this industry viable going forward, Steve.
Very, very important. And you're quite right. It all starts there with a good education. Doesn't matter what level of life we talk about, but in this one, it's turf. It starts with a good education. And if we get that wrong, it's a very slippery slope.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Something we need to protect. Mike, how do we get in touch if people are interested? What's the best way? Because
The
everyone's
best
going to be
way is
interested now. Let's be honest. After that conversation, who's not want to going to get involved?
well, I've sent you a brochure. If you can put
Yeah.
it in the program notes,
Yes.
there's a link on there that they can fill out, and they got to specify turf grass management in that link that they want to get in touch with me. That's the best way. I like to see a CV, put a CV and a clean cut photo in when they send in that link. It's on that brochure. If you share that, they can get in touch with me by WhatsApp. My WhatsApp number is +1 614 620 7720, and they can message me, and then I'll get them in touch with the link to get it going. I need to know their background, and then I will do just like we're doing right now, have a bit
Yep.
of a chat on WhatsApp video. I don't like all these forms and all that bump. I prefer to have a one-on-one chat with somebody. I'm
Yeah,
very
sure.
old school,
Yep.
Steve,
Yep.
and that's how they can get in touch with me that way. But honestly, the getting a bit of a CV together, and I will ask them, where did you go to TAFE? What course are you at? What have you done? And I get a lot of people that maybe don't have the traditional background and they're traveling, whatever. But I'll work with everybody. I'm very flexible, and I can't stress enough that what you do with women in turf with John Deere, let's try to identify some young women that would want to do this.
Yeah.
Steve, we have the framework. We have the credibility. Matter of fact, I work with John Deere up here. They have a program. They're trying to do an internship up here in the States themselves. It's
Okay.
not easy.
Yep.
They're trying to do that kind of thing. They recognize they grow the program in their own way. I work with Toro. I work with everybody. I
Yep.
mean, you can see on the background behind me, I work with the Live
Yeah.
Tour as well.
Yeah.
Not just the PGA Tour. I can't discriminate against anybody if they're willing to give this a chance, Steve.
Yep. No, that's great stuff, mate. And I'll have as much as I can share in the show notes, and so people can work out all the different ways to get involved, to learn about what it is, and look at it themselves and see if it's right for them. I think if you are dedicated in learning in your trade of greenkeeping here, and if they're listening to this, I think there's very much the opportunity for them to look into the Ohio State program. It's been around a long time. It has an incredible name throughout our industry here in our part of the world, in Australia and New Zealand, and I think, mate, you do some incredible work in nurturing people through the early parts of their careers to get them to better places and where they ultimately want to go, which is to, the world's their oyster in this trade of greenkeeping, which I think the more we talk about it, the more we see, we're starting to realise that you can go to some incredible places in your life and experience some unbelievable things, and it can take you anywhere. So, Mike, mate, my hat's off to you, because you've done some amazing things throughout your life to so many different people. You've changed so many lives, and you continue to help people with such passion and drive, and you do it so well in your own way, which is so good to see and so good to hear, and I think it's very relatable to a lot of people. So, mate, the way you do so, congratulations from me to you, and I really do want to say thank you for taking the time to talk about so many different parts, because I'm sure we could talk a lot more, and you do so to so many people, but it's really been a good insight and a great insight to yourself, mate, to who you are, and the Ohio State program that you stand so proudly with in showing what you can do for the greenkeeping industry in the US and the world, mate. So thank you very, very much indeed.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Steve, and thank you for taking the time to interview all those great people. And you really celebrate the industry. And we talked off record here about that interview you had with Richard. you really bring out the best in people. You're doing this for history, really, because I didn't know a lot of that stuff, and you really got Adam on there. It's wonderful what you do, and we really owe you a gratitude for what you do, Steve.
Oh,
So thank
thank
you
you,
so
mate.
much.
It's incredibly humbling that people enjoy listening, and it's the people that I get on. As we've talked
Yeah.
about, it's the people, right? That's
Yep.
really the be all and end all. We stop there
Yep.
because it's all the people that are so amazing. So thank you, mate, and I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Take care. Thank you so much.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was an absolute pearler of a conversation, a great interview, and a big thank you to Mike O'Keefe for joining me on my podcast, and I feel very privileged to have him on. It's been a long time coming, and every second person I seem to interview on this podcast has been through the Ohio State program, and it is just an absolutely incredible program offered to a great deal of people right around the world. And as you've heard, how Mike goes through the process of growing people. He's in the business of growing people. The Ohio State program is in the business of growing people, and it's just launched so many careers in this part of the world, in Australia and New Zealand, but certainly in many parts of the world. And it is just an incredible program, a great piece of the greenkeeping industry globally. It really is. And the things that Mike does and the things that the program does not only benefit some of the places where a lot of the interns work and things like that, but they stick with the people. They stick with all the interns. These are experiences that the interns will take away for life. They're not just workplace experiences and skills they'll pick up. They're life experiences. These things change people. They help people grow in so many different parts of their own lives, and it is an outstanding and an incredible program that continues to showcase why it's so important, why it has such a wonderful offering, and what it can give to you if you're someone who goes through this program. I don't need to sell it to you. You've heard the conversation with Mike. You've heard from so many different people that I've interviewed on the podcast that have been through the program, that are now superintendents in their own right, and they've gone through from the earliest days of being an apprentice and recently qualified to going on the Ohio program. And people like Martina Sinak, who have been on the program, that came from a part of the world that just does not celebrate golf by any stretch of the imagination, who worked hard to get into the program, to get something from it. She gained so much from it, and now here she is in Australia, been through different golf courses and working at different levels and volunteering in tournaments, and now she's working for a company in the industry, an Enview, and her role is just, so many people know Martina as well. So many people get so much from it, and it changes people's lives. I don't need to sell it to you, ladies and gentlemen. That was just a fantastic conversation. Mike is a wonderful human being who so many people look up to, and I've got no doubt so many people thank for what he's done for their lives and their careers. And I say that to Mike now in the outro of this podcast, not speaking with him, but I say this to him, that he has, and I've got no doubt he knows it, but he has changed so many people's lives for the better. He's made people in our industry. He's made them great people. He's made them great turf managers. He's made them great managers, and the things that they experience. And it is just amazing. And the program continues to do so many wonderful things to so many people and for so many people. So, ladies and gentlemen, a big thank you again from me to Mike O'Keefe for joining me on the podcast. And I hope that if you're interested, it's really something. There's so many people that you're going to talk to, and if you really want to reach out, it's not hard to find someone who's been through the program to see if it's something that you want to do. There are no more words left. We said so much, and I hope you got something out of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that one. Please like, share, and subscribe. I have to say that because whatever you do helps get the podcast around to so many more people. And chatting with someone like Mike O'Keefe on this podcast can just bring a wonderful insight to certain parts of our industry. And from a global sense and a global scale, it's really amazing to see just what Mike and the program do. And I've probably got to stop talking about it because I could keep selling it, I think. And it's quite remarkable what it achieves and what it continues to achieve. So, ladies and gentlemen, anything you do is a big help to the podcast. Rating reviews, written reviews, they all help. Clickables in the show notes. I will not be able to put all of the things that we spoke about and discussed on there like I normally would. There'll be a few things on there, but please check out the show notes, ladies and gentlemen. So there you go, Mike O'Keefe, first guest of Steve's random special guest. And there are more to come. I do have a couple of people that I've spoken to earlier in the year that I've got to get on. Not sure whether I think they'll fit nicely into Steve's random special guest. And these people who I'll have on will be very special people from within different parts of our industry that I probably never really thought that I'd get on here one day. So keep an eye out, ladies and gentlemen. I have to leave you with it, as I always say at the end of every podcast episode, and this one is a special one. For episode number 135, you hit 'em clean, we'll keep 'em green, and I'll catch up with you very soon. Testing.
Recording in progress.
Morning, mate.
Hey, Steve, good morning, mate. You're up early.
Yeah, mate, indeed. How you doing?
I'm good. It's a nice afternoon here, 4 o'clock. We haven't had any storm boil up yet, so we're good shape.
Good stuff, mate. Hey, thanks for joining me on this one. It's I'm just doing a few little sound adjustments while we're getting ready.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how's the sound from my end? I just have this headphone thing.
Mate, it is it's running perfect from your end.
Is it really? Okay. I'll try not to get too close to it. I just use these headsets and they seem to work okay, you know.
No, it's really good. It's really good, mate. It's all coming through clear on my end. I'm just adjusting my volumes for me just to make sure it's all good. You can hear me okay?
Oh, God, man, you must have $1 million microphone in your hand there. It's clear crystal.
Very good.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, think of the old days when we'd get on the bloody phone and, you know, it's crazy that we can talk like this, like uninterrupted. It's frightening, you know.
It's quite incredible, right? And maybe we'll save some of that conversation while we're yakking away because, yeah, I mean, and I still do a lot of mine on the phone.
Yeah, I tell you what, you did that one with Richard Forsyth. That was probably the best one ever.
No, thank you, mate.
That was unbelievable. And look at Adam last week. You got a knack of getting stuff out of people, and you trained him. I mean, you know, you really got the goods, and I think that was what it was. You kind of put him at ease, like, you know, and then you had a chin wag with him at the show as well. I listened to that this morning.
Oh, did you?
And he did. I could see he was a lot more relaxed having a chat with you at the show. You know.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
So no, thank you, mate.
I'm not trying to blow smoke here, but there's nobody else has done an interview with Richard to that depth and to get that much out of him. You know what I mean?
I have no idea, mate. There you go.
No,
I don't.
Nobody.
Well, that's good. That's good to know.
Because. And I mean, I've known Richard for 20 years since he came down from the farm. And I mean, I can talk to him, but he's not one to open up. And I didn't know half that stuff you got out of him about where he came from. And it was brilliant. I don't know how your ratings are or what your numbers are, but that had to be one of the highest.
It is number
listen to one.
Yeah, it went.
Is it really?
It went pretty quickly through my ranks because I had one. Tim Warren's, who had done a couple of years ago now, his was right up there because they just progressively accumulate listens, right, and downloads. So, but having Richard's been last November, I think it was that I did it, he's just straight up all the way through to number one. And John Mann is second.
Yep.
Again, another guy who's a fantastic...
Well, what I'm saying is that it's good for a history standpoint to have that on record, to have Richard tell his track record. I mean, all of the stuff he's done and what his attitude and where he's been and everything. I mean, it's really a good thing to have on record, because there's a lot of people we did before that we didn't have that kind of thing. We didn't. And I have a guy up here as well, Brian Laurent, that does one here, Turf Today.
Yep.
And he got Paul Latchaw, and Paul barely talks to people, but he
Right.
got him talking.
Yep.
And I think it was the comfortable. Did you do that interview with Adam in the office, or did you do it online like this, or how did you do it?
No, I went to Melbourne and did that one with Adam.